Tonight on the Black Channel, there have been some recent comments that have been made, and I really feel I've tried to hold off on it, as you can all tell, because it's been about a week now, and I didn't say anything, and I have a number of different reasons for doing so. And tonight, I need to go ahead and express my thoughts on this. Before I get started, let me make a couple of things clear. This is not going to be a roast. This is not going to be a flame. It's not going to be a clown session. It's going to be a teaching moment. I know some folks might think it's ironic, but no, this will be a teaching moment because we want to educate some people, and they should take this as an opportunity for them to get up to speed on some things that they are either unaware of or mistaken about, since apparently that's the case. I know a lot of you are expecting I'm going to hit you with the "you got to watch out for these old," but believe it or not, I'm not going to hit you with that tonight. I'm actually not going to hit you with that tonight. We're going to just keep it straight down the middle in particular here. Now, recently, Professor James Small did an interview with somebody I don't even know. It doesn't really matter. However, a number of comments were made that I think it would be remiss on my part if I didn't address it. It was talking about a number of things in particular. Talking about FBA. A few comments about Tariq Nasheed in there as well. I'm not really going to say anything about that. He has his own platform. He knows Professor Small much more than I do. I've never spoken to Professor Small. I've never talked to him. I've never had a interaction with him myself. I know he knows about my work. That's great. That's wonderful. I know he knows about my films. That's fine. I'm not here to defend anybody else in that regard. If they want to say something, they are perfectly capable of speaking for themselves. I'm here tonight to speak for myself. And I do have some thoughts on what I heard. So in any case, we're going to go ahead and just jump right into it here and just start from the beginning during the program. By the way, I did listen to it. You all know me. So no one can accuse me of taking anything out of context or citing anything out of context. No, I'm going to play exactly what it is. So we're going to go ahead and just start with the first thing here. And whoever this little fella is who is hosting that program or whatever, as a matter of fact, I really want to change this just a little bit. Really want to change this just a little bit because I want to, I feel like I want to make sure that they're portrayed a little bit better here based on, I guess you could say just based on my feeling about it. I guess you could say it like that. Based on my feeling of it. I think this picture here does a little bit better. I don't know who this little fella is. I'm not really certain what it is there, but I do know that he was really a driving force behind this. So I guess we'll give credit where credit is due. But whoever he is, and it's not really that important to be totally honest, whoever he is, he certainly didn't come with the best of intentions. And that's neither here nor there, to be totally honest, because it's not what he had to say that was the issue at all. He was pretty much a non-factor where this is concerned. It's everything else. So let me go ahead and start you all with a clip here. By the way, of course, it goes without saying, fair use. Fair use. We're just going to take this in chronological order. They had a whole chapter in here about FBA is divisive. They had a whole he put a whole chapter in here about FBA is divisive. So he said something here, and then Professor Small responded.
And yes, we were there before Columbus, but we were everywhere before Columbus. So why is it so important that we were in North America? We were in South America, we were in Brazil, we were in Cambodia, we were in China. And so what we're dealing with, you've always had those who was ashamed of being African. But it isn't just that. A part of it is a reaction between what we call the immigrant ideology versus an indigenous ideology. The Africans who have been in America for the last 500 years feel that the Africans who come to America in the last 5 years do not ally themselves with them, but ally themselves with our enemies. That's what's at the crux of this.
Okay. Well, so far, so good. Of course, it's been a lot more than 5 years. So this isn't an issue that goes back 5 years. You all know that I've been talking about this now going on 20 years. This is not a new conversation or a new discussion here. Some other folks who, as I said, this is a teaching moment, just in case. Obviously, some people are not aware that this is not something recent. They may have only been aware of it recently, but those of you who've been following me know I've been talking about this now going on 20 years. So this is not a new conversation here. But to some other folk, apparently they only became aware of it in the last 5 years, or it only hit their radar in the last 5 years. So they assumed that because it only was an issue that they registered with in the last 5 years, that, it hasn't been going on before now. And that's just completely fallacious and wrong. So far what he's saying is accurate, even though the chronology is very, very much in error. But so far, generally speaking, so far, so good.
All right. It isn't just the denial. And so, and it isn't that the Africans who are arriving lately is allying themselves with our enemies, because they don't perceive, just like we don't know our history in America. How do we expect a guy from Kenya or Nigeria to know the African-American history? We don't know the history.
Yeah, we do. Once again, another teaching moment. Actually, yeah, we do. That's the whole point. So, yeah, I'm not gonna kick it with that one there either. Yeah, we do know our history, which is exactly why there is a problem. There's friction because we do know our history. So, yeah, I can't accept that one either.
So our people they're trying to ally themselves with the advantage. So if you go into a community to get rich, are you going to ally yourself with the impoverished person in the community or the rich person in the community?
So if you're going somewhere to get rich, now he is describing motive. So what he is admitting is that their motive is not unity. Their motive is not Pan-Africanism. Their motive is, I'm here to get rich. So in other words, you're here for yourself. We did not do what was in our self-interest. We didn't gain anything by Pan-Africanism. We did that because it was a principle. When that principle became obsolete, update your files. When that little movement became obsolete, we did what an intelligent organism is supposed to do. We adjusted, we adapted, and we changed. A foolish person or a foolish organism does not adapt and change when the conditions on the ground have changed. The conditions changed, and so we changed. Someone else who may be stuck in their ways and is refusing to adapt to a changed environment, that might make you feel great for nostalgia. We're not operating under nostalgia. We are operating under empowerment. So I think that's where the breakdown in comprehension may be emanating from, is that these newer fellows are out here adapting to the environment, and other people are trying to hold on to an obsolete bygone era that does not exist anymore except in their memories.
And so it's a lack of understanding. It's a lack of interaction that needs to take place more often so we can understand. Yes, even African Americans, we ally ourselves with the white man. So how are we going to get mad because the Nigerian brother allies himself with the same white man? But
We ally ourselves with the white man. Tell Megyn Kelly that we ally ourselves with the white man. Tell Bill O'Reilly that. Tell Charlie Kirk that. Tell Ben Shapiro that. Tell Ron DeSantis that. Because clearly they don't agree with you. Tell Donald Trump that we ally ourselves with the white man. Tell the Democrats who promote everybody except the foundation, tell them that. Because don't believe me, believe our enemies. If we were allied with the white man, then the white man would not be talking about woke and DEI. Why would he be talking about woke and DEI if we were allied with him? So, like I say, when you start creating slogans and jingoisms in order to prop up once again an obsolete, outdated, non-existent position, you say things that sound very, very similar to this. So yeah, if we were allied with the white man, then they wouldn't be yelling about woke and DEI, and they wouldn't still be mad about George Floyd. Was George Floyd, the uprisings, was that allied with them? Because they are still very, very much angry and still very, very much bitter about that. Oh yeah, 5 years ago. So the white men that you're referring to, they don't think we're allied with them. Go find them and say, oh yeah, black folk are allied with us. Yep. I'll wait for you to find some who'll say that and back that up for you. Find me some white men who will back up that statement. Don't you just say it. Go get some white men who will substantiate and agree with you. Yeah, he's right. You all are allied with us.
That's what's at the crux of it. You understand? So the perception that, oh, we fought for these advantages, but you come to America and you're allowed to have this advantage that we fought for because they are scared of us and they're not afraid of you. Because they can take advantage of you because you need a green card so you can't fight back. But they can't take advantage of me because I can fight back.
Okay, but the issue here is that even on the African continent, they don't need a green card on the African continent and they're not fighting back there. So this is not a matter of citizenship, a green card or whatever. This is a matter of principle and culture and the code that you have as a people. So once again, factually inaccurate and incorrect. This ain't about a green card. So I'm getting real close to saying there's a lot of cope going on here because it's just like, okay, so we're just going to disregard math and reality in order to make it seem like there's some sympathetic position. I'm like, yeah, screw that. Let's just stick to math. Why don't we just stick to math? Because you cannot fix a problem if you will not face a problem. And if you keep trying to recharacterize it and reframe it as something that it's not, in order to keep from saying the obvious, there is a character flaw. There is a character flaw in these cultures that the white supremacists took advantage of, and that we have made great strides in shrugging off and shaking off. If you will not call them out and say, hey, there's a character flaw here, and just try to make it seem like, oh, well, they just don't know. You can't do anything. Once again, as Brother Neely Fuller said, you can't do something that is this uniform across the whole continent and it's ignorant and people are just stumbling into it by accident. No, it's conscious. It is conscious and knowing. That's why it is uniform. Their behavior is markedly different from ours. That's not accidental. It's not accidental on our part, and it's not accidental on their part either. And the whole thing is, we understand you can't correct anything if you're going to sit up here and try to massage the language and water it down and dilute it and, oh, let me not be offensive. It's like, no, it's not offensive to tell them, hey, you're off code. That's not offensive. Or if it is offensive, it's the right kind of offensive. Now, hang on to your bat helmets, boys and girls, for what you're about to hear next. And I know so far I haven't given you a heads up about things, but there's something he's about to say next here about what we need to do for other people, by the way. So just hang on to your bat capes, because wait till you hear this part.
These are all of the little nuances, right? but none of them understand it enough to explain it like you and I are now doing. And so that's why we have to tell our side of the story. We have to say, we see what's going on, but you don't hate your brother because he's lost his sight. You grab his hand and give him guidance. Where have the African American opened up a refugee center for our brothers and sisters coming from home and need help?
Yeah. Where are the African Americans to open up refugee centers for these other folks? Yeah, you heard that correctly the first time. I'll go ahead and back it up so you can hear it again.
Explain it like you and I are now doing. And so that's why we have to tell our side of the story. We have to say, we see what's going on, but you don't hate your brother because he's lost his sight. You grab his hand and give him guidance. Where have the African American opened up a refugee center for our brothers and sisters coming from home and need help and assistance? So how are we going to complain if they go to the Indian or the Chinese or the white man for aid when we have not set up any place to aid him?
We did, Professor Small. It's called the United States of America.
And deal with it.
There is no refugee assistance for us going over to Africa, for us going to the Caribbean. We gave them the ability to get refugee assistance. Then now they got access to all the things that we would have as citizens, even though they pay nothing. They can get welfare, food stamps, Section 8, refugee assistance, something we can't get. We can't get any of that going over there. There is no refugee assistance. So we made it where if they make it to American soil, that is the refugee center. And very clearly they agree and understand it because they're taking full advantage of it. We set that up, sir. Please go and investigate your history, sir. President Woodrow Wilson, sir. They didn't want any of them coming over here. We had to stomp for 30 years to get that damn thing opened. And they called it an Immigration Act. We're the ones who had to stomp for that. They did not have that before we made that possible. Apparently, some folks are unaware of that, and they just think that, oh, well, these other folks are going here, the white folks' refugee centers. White folk didn't set up no refugee centers for Africans. They didn't set aside any part of the budget for anybody else. Hell, they was squeezing us out of the budget. So we made it whereas if they get to American soil, that's it. Even if they don't have a roof over their head, they got access to the economic system simply by virtue of getting here. That's the point. So mathematics comes into play here. Unless you just want to disregard history because it's not convenient to the Pan-African narrative. And I'm just saying, okay, if allegiance to a Pan-African narrative requires you to just basically be intellectually dishonest about the facts of history, it's like, okay, once you have to start ripping out chapters and throwing out things and reframing whole parts of reality, that's where the issue comes up. In the chat room, there are some folks who have been disagreeing with some of what I've had to say here, and that's perfectly fine because you'll be required to call in when I open up the Zoom. That's not an issue there. You'll be required to call in when I open up the Zoom. I'm not going to ban them just yet, but Unbreaking the Ice, or Unbreaking the Rice, and some of the other folks in there, I want my mods to take their information, and when I open up the Zoom, they'll be required to call in. If they don't, then we'll ban them at that time. Remember, I don't have to debunk you. All I have to do is get you to not stand by your statements, and you debunk yourself. So my mods will get their information, and when I open up the Zoom, they'll be required to call in. Because, of course, they would not destroy their own points by running from it, right? Now, what they won't do is keep chatting in the chat room. But, of course, they're not going to destroy their own points, their own trying to attempt a refutation by running from it, right? You wouldn't do that, would you? At least make it where I have to do it. Because if you just destroy it on your own, well, now anybody who thought you were sensible just feels stupid. Just saying. So, yeah, we opened an open air refugee center, which is literally why when Biden was president and they opened the doors to all the illegal aliens, I mean, there's your refugee center right there. Yeah, I mean, some facts are inconvenient, but they're still facts. Just saying.
Or when they come and they have no place to stay and they're looking for a job.
Okay, let's be very, very clear about this next part right here. And Professor Small being from New York, I mean, once again, man, we just can't do this. None of them come over here because they quote unquote don't have a place to stay. I've been in New York City. I've been in the homeless areas in New York. I've been up under the damn bridges there, the overpasses. I've been in Los Angeles. I've been to Houston. I've been to Miami. You don't have a bunch of, there's the crazy part is that the people who are on the streets, and I got it on video, not what somebody else told me, the people on Skid Row and the homeless folk, those are not the immigrants. What? One more thing. I guess I got to educate them about this own city. Those are not the immigrants. Y'all go to Skid Row and go see how many immigrants there are. But they're not. Anybody who's been there in New York, New Jersey, Detroit, Chicago, those are not immigrants on the streets. They didn't come here because they didn't have a destination. That is the biggest fallacy of naivete that a person could have. For somebody who's a lifelong New Yorker, I'm from Louisiana and I know that about New York. And I'm from Louisiana. They don't come to New York because they don't have a place to go. They come to New York because they do. They got family, they got friends, they got kinfolk. Nobody comes all the way from Nigeria to New York on a wing and a prayer. They come because they got people there, which has been the whole point. You would not leave Chicago and move to Tijuana and say, well, I'll just panhandle till I get on my feet. You're not going to do that. You'd never be so stupid or silly. That would be a death wish. So this is once again a science fiction tale. These people do not come here because they don't have a place to go. They come here because they do. But they got to get plugged in first. But they come here because they do. They got people, they got connections, they got neighborhoods. Hell, they were welcoming them walking off the buses in New York when Texas and Florida sent the buses to New York, and they were welcoming them as they got off the buses. Yeah, they do got people. So that is a myth. And lifelong New Yorkers know better than this. So I don't understand why Professor Small would be saying this, but there's no way you've lived. I've been to New York a dozen times. There's no way that the person who lives there doesn't know this. And I know this just having visited the place periodically.
You understand? So if the whites give them that support, then naturally they're going to advise themselves with the whites. And then the African Americans saying, oh, you ally yourself with my racist enemy.
Okay, they allied themselves with the whites back in Africa. They allied themselves with the whites back in the Caribbean. So once again, this is incredibly misleading. He doesn't know this? Okay. No, sir. They're allied with them before they come over here. Anybody who's been to Africa, Professor Small claims he's been many, many, many times. Okay, then he knows they're allied with them over there. In Kenya, Ethiopia, South Africa, Nigeria, anybody who's been there, hell, anybody who's talked to them sees they're already allied over there, and he's talking as if there's a transformation that occurs by need of survival after they get over here. Okay, so that just totally dismisses. No, they were allied before they ever came over here. So this isn't some transformation that spontaneously occurred once they got here. Ooh, they got here and realized, ooh, the white got everything. I better change up. They were already in sync with them over there. Hell, they are already in sync with them over there. So once again, if you have to start fabricating these narratives to uphold an obsolete ideology, i.e. Pan-Africanism, just remember, it might make you feel good for nostalgia's sake, but mathematics is going to rule everything in the end.
And you are against me. That's a big part of what's going on. That's not true across the board, because many of the brothers and sisters who are Muslim have been able to blend very well with the African Americans who are Muslims. But the African Americans and many of the brothers and sisters on the continent who's from the Christian community have not been able to blend very well. And that's the majority community.
Okay. I don't know any foundational Muslims who would say that. So once again, I don't think that will actually withstand scrutiny. Ideologically, you can talk yourself into it, but as far as finding people who say, yes, this is my daily life, no.
And so this fight between the whites and us, our people are caught in the middle of that fight. You understand? And we're saying our people are siding with our enemy. They're not siding with the enemy. They don't even know what the hell's going on. They don't even know we got to fight.
What? Folks, they don't even know we have a fight. They don't even know we have a fight. Really? I mean, what do I even say to that? Now, do you all even need me to address that? They don't even know there's a fight? White folk, we get videos all the damn time showing white folk doing every form of debauchery to them on African soil. And he's saying they don't even know there's a fight. I'm like, okay, how in the world did you come to that conclusion with everything you see out here? How much reaching do you have to do to say a statement like that? So, Jason, am I taking anything out of context, people? And once again, no disrespect to Professor Small, but I'm just like, okay, I got to address this, man. I'm being as respectful as I can be, but how in the world can you look outside the window and sit up here and say, oh, they don't even know there's a fight going? Really? So they know there's one against us, but they don't know there's one with the white folk? Really? As if the white folk treat them so great. To say they don't know there's a fight is to say that white society treats them so great. And that's not the case. It's not the case in Africa. It's not the case over here. So what are you really trying to prove? Or what are you really trying to accomplish by saying that? Because the facts outside of our windows very clearly prove that this is completely a false statement. So what are we really trying to prove here? Because we're not trying to prove that they are beloved by the white establishment. That's not the case. So what's the real goal and the real aim here?
And so it's our job to tell the history, tell the story, have the political discussions on forums like this so people get a better understanding of what the conflict is. So you got people who thinking, the ones in America thinking, our brothers from home don't want us, they hate us, they betrayed us, because look, they only go with the white people, they don't come with us. And then the one from the continent says, oh, our brothers in America, they treat us terribly, they don't offer us a hospitality hand to come, and help when we're in crisis, but the whites and the white organization do. And so that's where you see this thing coming from.
Okay. The very fact they come over here and they're in black neighborhoods, they're dealing with black people. These folk don't come from Africa and go to a white neighborhood. They can't go to a white neighborhood. Ain't that right, Amadou Diallo? Ain't that right, Abner Louima? So that's just completely false. The only place they get welcomed is among us. From the music, from the culture, from the food, from the geography, from the neighborhood. There are no white neighborhoods where they've ever been welcomed, and sure ain't welcome today. So once again, what city are you referring to by saying such a outrageously inaccurate, completely 180 degrees the opposite of reality? What are we doing? And give a handout and a help? Most of the time they're talking about how great where they came from is, which really just kind of confuses you. Okay, well, if it's great, they don't have to worry about being here, but... So once again, where is this coming from, man? I'm talking about, let's take a look at the facts in reality on the ground here, not some historical anecdote. Let's take a look at what's happening right outside your door. Where is this coming from? Because this is not what's happening right outside your window. It isn't. It's just not. If it were, we would have a much different conversation. We can go ahead and wrap this up very easily, but no, this just isn't real. It just isn't. They get plenty of assistance from us. They get plenty of welcoming from us. Their whole presence here. That's why I can name Amadou Diallo and Abner Louima. And I'm from Louisiana, and they got support from there. No. So we're reaching really, really far here to try to substantiate or justify a bunch of off-code behavior. That's the real issue. And if we all suffered from daily amnesia, maybe it would work. But I'm like, okay, but we're not suffering from that.
But nobody will really say that because they don't know how to articulate what neither side is seeing. You understand? And so we have a situation where we have more brothers and sisters who are immigrants from Africa who's being deported, and we don't even know they're being deported. They're being arrested. We don't even know they're being arrested. You understand? So for those of us who even want to help them, we can't help them because we don't know how to find them.
Okay, but our issue has been that by and large, when they come over here, Karine Jean-Pierre and so many others, they get booed up with the white establishment. So first he's saying that they don't know that there's a fight. They don't know that they're who the enemy is. But amazingly, now you're going to say that they know who the enemy is, or are you going to say they still don't know who the enemy is when he goes rounding them up? I mean, which is it? Are they just brain damaged and they're just zombies who don't understand anything? Or do you think when they started rounding them up that they realized, the black folks we've been sitting up here dissing all this time, they ain't the real problems? Do you think they figured it out then? Or are you going to still say they getting rounded up and they don't know why? They don't understand why they getting rounded up. Which one is it? Do they not know who the enemy is and that's why they're not on code with us? Or when they get rounded up, they still don't know who the enemy is? And which one is it? But don't worry, he goes a little bit further here right now, by the way.
Until the other day, downtown Manhattan, they raided down on the east side, where a lot of our people from the continent vend. And that's when it blew open and we go like, now they're attacking Africans. Before they were just attacking the Spanish-speaking from South America. But at the same time, they were attacking us, but they were keeping it very quiet. But that day, the ICE people came in the open and just beat up on our people and took their products and ran them away so that the next day, a street that was always full of West Africans, there was nobody.
Oh, well, but when we talked about what the police were doing to us and what the government was doing to us, the Africans were telling us that we're lazy, we don't work hard, that the white folk brought them over here because they're hard workers and they're so much better. Okay, so which one is it? They don't know there's a fight. Do you think they know there's one now?
And deal with it.
Do you think they know there's one now? Because they were telling us that we were just lazy. They were telling us, we see you niggas on these street corners here, you do nothing. That's not the people at the State Department or Immigration Department saying that, sir. That's not something that they heard from the State Department. That's what they say when they get over here, that's what they see with their own eyes. Well, they were sitting up here blaming us, victim blaming the whole time. And we just said, okay, well, y'all stay over there and stay booed up with the white government. Well, okay, we step back. But that is a result of decades of them telling us that we were the problem. That we just weren't doing what we were supposed to be doing. While they were witnessing what the government, the police, the corporate establishment, they thought they had some little privileged position being immigrants. And so they were perfectly fine backing the government against us when they thought that they were going to get benefits from it. And for a while they did. Now that it's flipped the other way, all of a sudden we supposed to play stupid? Turn the other cheek, ignore what happened. So we're just supposed to play dumb now. That's the part you're leaving out. Very, very conveniently, you're leaving out all these very, very important, pertinent, crucial details. You just keep leaving that out. And just everybody's got to have collective amnesia. Well, if I don't want to have collective amnesia, now what? So yeah, if I don't suffer from amnesia, you're the guys who were sitting up here helping the white establishment against us because you figured you were the newcomers and that the white establishment was going to clear us out and hand it to you. And you said, hey, I like that. So they didn't care about Pan-Africanism then. Oh, they knew the term. They were just like, yeah, tell them niggas whatever, and then we take advantage. It's like, okay, well, now they're coming for you. So as Professor Small just pointed out, now they saw all these forces going at us. They saw them going at us, and they tried to take advantage of it. They didn't step up and tell them folk, no, y'all are wrong. They tried to take advantage. And now he's going to tell us that they ain't really know what's going on. Yeah, they did. Once again, their behavior couldn't be so uniform across the board, across the city, across the nation. They couldn't all be behaving so uniformly if they were not consciously aware of what they were doing. You can't be this uniform if you're not all in it together and you're not all consciously aware of what you're doing. It would just be this big chaotic mishmash of conflicting behaviors. It wouldn't be so effective if they weren't uniform, and it can't be uniform if they don't all already know what their agenda is. But if you accept that, then you have to divorce yourself from the fallacy of the Pan-Africanist movement as it previously existed. If you're married to that, you're going to make up all kinds of cognitive dissonance and denial. You're going to be just in total denial of everything. And when we give you incontrovertible evidence, you're still going to be invoking the denial stuff and leaving out details in order to keep this broken worldview together, as opposed to saying, you know what? The situation has changed. We need to make adjustments. Maybe we can circle back to this later, but right now it has become obsolete and we have to adapt and make adjustments. If you refuse to do that, well, then you start splaining all over the place, and don't be surprised when you start losing backing for it.
On the streets. And that's the first time our people realized there's something wrong.
So they didn't realize anything was wrong with Abner Louima. They didn't realize anything was wrong with Amadou Diallo because there were hella African and Haitian immigrants and whatnot in the streets then. So they didn't understand it back then, sir. I mean, you think we all forgot about that? We did not forget about that. So they've been aware. It's only when they don't have the ability to try to sit up here and finesse some preferential treatment. All of a sudden, they're Americans and you niggas need to work harder. So let's just stop the nonsense. They were consciously trying to take advantage of the situation. Now, if you refuse to admit and mouth that truth and that reality, at that point right there, it's like, okay, you're just in denial at best. But you have to, the time is over for playing about this. The honest reality is what you see in front of you. They've been trying to take advantage of it. Well, the government goes after you native niggas. Well, when they clear you out, I take over. Because this is how we get down back where I come from. As opposed to, yeah, we're not going to do any of that. They were coming over here and they thought they were going to take advantage. I can't say they thought they were. They have been taking advantage of it. They have not been buffer classes by accident. They've been buffer classes consciously and deliberately. They shook hands with the white supremacist establishment and said, I'm down with what you're doing to these native Negroes. We gonna clear them out and I'm gonna take over. And now you're gonna be mad because you were just the last ones on the train to Dachau? You thought that you were going to get preferential treatment, and then you found out what we warned you about was true. You're just going to be the last ones they put on the train to Auschwitz. Only now you're not the last ones. Actually, you got bumped to the front of the line because we got out of the way defending you. And now they just said, okay, well, actually, we can't get the natives, but we can get all you other folks over here. Now you suddenly became first to get put on the trains to Dachau, and now you're screaming foul? But you were helping them load up the trains when you thought they were going to grab all of us. You were helping them to load us on the trains. Now that it's flipped, all of a sudden you found religion? And it does not matter who it is, you cannot put a spin on this that makes us disregard what we know is true because we sat here and witnessed it. We're going to move forward a little bit here because he has another story that he would like to tell. Oh, yeah, I took notes, folks. I don't have to play the whole thing here. I took notes of these things. I took notes. He would like to tell us about the vendors is what he would like to tell us about. Professor Small would like to regale us with a story about the vendors there in New York. Of course, he's going to bring up something, but he's going to, once again, very curiously, he's going to leave out a very, very critical detail. Just like everything else, the most crucial part is the one thing that he keeps skipping over every time. And it's just very, very curious why that keeps getting omitted every time.
Together, the police will take advantage of you and they will take your products. You know, now they tell our people they can't get a vending license, but and part of that same mission, I went down to the place that grant the vending license because I'm a veteran. They got to give me one, right? And I went actually to renew mine. And I realized that the Asians and the Pakistani and everybody's being given vending license, but they won't give the African and the African Americans vending license. And I tried to get the politicians to help me fight this, but I couldn't get one of them who had the courage to stop this.
Oh. Which politicians are you referring to, Professor Small? The immigrants?
What?
By the way, where did those politicians people come from? The ones that you're saying you couldn't get them to do anything. By the way, did you check the paperwork and ask where they came from? Because I can tell you about Eric the Villain Dillon. Yeah, I mean, they just sentenced the cops who killed Robert Brooks. But Eric Dillon, one of the damn chief people in the assembly, talking about he didn't have a position on that murder. And Ricky Torres. So once again, hey, Professor Small, this is the reason why we have said, okay, we're not going to let you put this on all of us. The politicians you're talking about, where they come from? Where did they come from? Don't sit up here and try to glum us all together and say, you know, they wouldn't do that right. No. Are you talking about Afro-Caribbeans, Afro-Latinos, Africa? Is that who you're referring to? Because if that's who you're referring to, oh, that explains everything. So when you try to convince us that we need to glum everybody together, it's like, wait a minute, but you said you've already pointed out where the issue coming from. So that's a very key element to leave out there. Very key element to leave out. Who are the politicians and where did they come from? See, we gotta know that. If you leave that out, now it's very misleading. You got everybody thinking this is a we problem. No, it's a they problem. The same folks y'all keep sitting here trying to sandbag in. It's like, I got a sneaking suspicion. Once they get in, they telling you, okay, well, white daddy tell me what to do now. And we're just like, okay, we're a little bit wiser than that now. We're a little bit wiser than that. So if you're not acknowledging that and dealing with that, then we're deflecting from the actual issue in order to defend that obsolete worldview and that obsolete ideological movement. And once again, when you got to start doing this to defend that, to defend an ideology, isn't it about time to just abandon the ideology and make some, I don't know, corrections?
If you're going to give these people vending license, then give our people vending license. So you stop arresting them. And then the other thing with the brothers from the county, the brothers from here, that if you don't work together, they're going to play you against one another. And none of you are going to really make a living. So that was my argument on the street. But I have a deeper understanding of it, and I can make the argument. But most people have a trivial knowledge of anything. They just said, oh, he did this, or oh, he did that, and oh, they don't like me. And I go, that's the craziest thing in the world to me, and maybe to you. But to them, when you're ignorant of history and college, and you've never traveled, that thing is a big thing in your mind. So that's why we've got to talk about it and say, no. We know this conflict is a part of the, I used to call it post-slavery trauma syndrome. Even before my sister Joy wrote her book by decades, I've got lectures on post-slavery trauma syndrome. And I coined the term, actually, decades before. But Dr. Degree has done such an excellent job. I spoke with her about a month ago on the document that she has written, that the whole world needs to write it. Because you can just change slavery to colonialism and you'd have the same result.
Okay. I gotta say this. No disrespect. No disrespect whatsoever. Joy DeGruy, Professor Small, anybody else who's gone to college and gotten some very, very hefty credentials. Shout out to y'all. That's great. That's wonderful. I gotta tell you though, I stand firm about the so-called black academics, y'all. That does not carry the weight that it used to 60 or 70 years ago. Charlie Kirk didn't go around waving a degree. The folks in the dominant society giving us hell, they ain't going around waving degrees. As a matter of fact, most of them are college dropouts. So, with all due respect, no disrespect whatsoever, but when folks tell me about their papers and academics and whatnot, yeah, y'all, I might as well go ahead and make it 720 degrees of a clean sweep tonight. I'm just saying, please understand, there's a reason why that doesn't carry the weight with us. People sitting up here and investigating names and labels and, oh, we're going to put a label on the, okay, I'll agree with whatever label you got now. What we going to do about white supremacy now? I'm not going to get stuck on the label. I'm going to be like, okay, what we going to do? Because academics tend to get together and give each other mutual back rubs. And I'm just like, okay, but that doesn't really boil down to the people. That doesn't actually still down to the people. So I would be remiss if I didn't just stop here and acknowledge, by the way, and I'm a person who loves a good education too. I've been by the schoolhouse door myself. I've been by the college door myself. Okay. And I'm just saying there's a bunch of y'all in here got degrees. And I'm going to say this here. It's like, okay, there's a reason why that is particularly irksome to a certain degree. No disrespect to people who've been to college and they got their doctorates and they got their credentials. I respect that. I just want to put this in its proper context. That in deconstructing white supremacy, great, but when it becomes this kind of intellectual masturbation, now that's where I'm like, okay, Don't be surprised when that doesn't carry the amount of weight with us that you might suspect or assume that it would. In decades past, it did. 2025 and forward, it doesn't. But there's a reason for it. It's not disrespect. It's because we see that they tend to go round and round in circles, and that becomes the action as opposed to, hey, that's not really action, that's preparatory.
Post-colonial colonial trauma syndrome. And that's what both sides are suffering from. Lack of knowledge of history, a lack of understanding of Pan-Africanism, and they're both suffering from post-slavery trauma and post-colonial trauma because neither know who their real enemy is. So they think each other is the enemy.
Okay, once again, Professor Small, you are projecting what the Africans do. We know who our enemy is. That's why we out in the streets fighting them. That's why we got legislation. Ask the enemy if we know who they are. Once again, they wouldn't be yelling about woke, what we created, conscious, what we created. They wouldn't be complaining about those things if we didn't know who the enemy was. If we didn't know who the enemy was, then everything would be cool on their side and they would just let it roll like they did in the 1920s and 1930s. So once again, that is an objectively false statement as proven by the white establishment. The white establishment does not agree with what you said. None of them do. So that statement is completely false and inaccurate. You cannot find any white people, certainly in position of authority, who agree with that or will say that that is an accurate statement. So if the enemy says that what you're saying is wrong, you can't say, well, the enemy actually thinks it's the truth. No, they don't. No, they don't. Now, back on African soil, well, they come out in the streets dancing. When the white supremacists come over there, they come out in the streets dancing. Well, so you're projecting their character flaw onto us in order to try to, quote, keep the peace. And it's just like, okay, this is not how you keep the peace.
You know, and the white man don't give a damn about none of us. He only wants the raw material of Africa, and he wants our labor and don't want to pay us for it here in America. So it's for us to try to have more interaction like you and I are having today, and I have sometimes with Susan Tato on Pan-African Daily TV and some of the other forums, and as they can talk up their side, the foundation, then let's talk up our Pan-Africanism. Let's not let them define Pan-Africanism. Let us define Pan-Africanism, and we should do this here today.
Okay, let's be clear about something here. Pan-Africanism has been around for over a century. We created it. Marcus Garvey did not bring Pan-Africanism to us. Marcus Garvey figured out what Pan-Africanism was and came to a place where Pan-Africanism was already popping. And if Marcus, you know for a fact he didn't make it because nobody in Jamaica was rocking with it. He didn't come and introduce us to Pan-Africanism. He went to a place where Pan-Africanism was already popping. And after a century, let's be very, very clear. If Pan-Africanism were effective, it would be self-evident after a century. You wouldn't have to sell it after a century, sir. If it were effective, it would be self-evident. You wouldn't have to sell it. You could simply point to the positive effects, the positive results. You would be pointing to that. You wouldn't be saying, we still need to make the case for Pan-Africanism. We still need to argue for Pan-Africanism. After a century, obviously people have seen what it does. Well, they just don't know. We need to educate them. They can see what it does. You don't have something around for a century and people can't see that it's working. If it were working, it would be self-evident and you would simply point to the self-evidence. You wouldn't be saying, well, y'all are just kind of silly and stupid. You just understand how great it's working. It's not working. Which is why you're now trying to argue that we need to just give it more time. We need to try harder, work harder, put up with more garbage from the newcomers that you help bring up. We just need to suffer some more and then eventually it'll work for us. That's ideological. That is an ideology, not a science. That's just ideology. And to ask people to sacrifice themselves on the altar of an ideology, That's wrong, especially an ideology that may have been effective at one time, but it has since become ineffective. Once it becomes ineffective, you pivot and you change. You don't just keep pushing on the same dead horse. Well, once upon a time, it did a lot of work. When it was alive, it did. He did. We need to get a new horse.
All pan means is the unity. Africanism means the unity of the African way of being. We want to unite African in the African way of being. You understand? That means that we are in control of our economics, our politics, and our culture. And we're not beholden to anybody else in the world.
Now, I'm going to let this next part here play because Professor Small is about to let us know that, by the way, it's not just about race. He's going to let us know that, by the way, this issue with the FBA is not understanding things. It's not just about race. It's about class. No, these are not going to be my words. I'm going to play it here so you can hear it for yourselves. I'm just letting y'all know I took notes. I'm not just letting it play at random. I took notes of specifically the points I heard. Okay. He's about to let you all know that, by the way, it's about class. So let me go ahead and let him explain that to you.
World. They think Pan-Africanism is some organization. Pan-Africanism is not an organization. But that tells it, even for the foundation of black.
Nobody ever said that Pan-Africanism was a, quote, organization. Show me who is not on psychotropic drugs who ever claimed that the Pan-African ideology was an organization. Name the name of the person who said that. Don't just say those words. Tell us the name of the person who said that. Because this sounds once again like some inversion of, well, FBA is an organization. I mean, it sounds like somebody trying to invert that one and turn the arguments that have been made against FBA and say, well, it's really not against them. They really aimed at us. Okay, so name for me the person who ever said that Pan-Africanism was, quote, an organization. Who is it exactly? Who has ever said that? I want to know.
Pan-Africanism is some organization. Pan-Africanism is not an organization. But that tells it, even for the foundation of Black America, people want me to beat up on them. I can't beat up on them either. They're the same ignorant ones we have to enlighten. How am I going to beat up on them? They're no more lost than the brothers and sisters in Nigeria who live in Houston, who have nothing to do with the African American community, and they work only 90% of them with the white community because they think that's where success is. It isn't that they have anything against the African American brothers and sisters because they're African American. If we could have been Nigerian Americans, but if we were in the poor sector, they wouldn't have nothing to do with us.
Okay. Nobody's told Professor Small about Akata. What? He's doing that thing again, and I'm wondering, how did he come to these conclusions? Maybe somebody can explain to me how he came to these conclusions, because all of us are considerably younger than him, and apparently we all have seen and witnessed exponentially more than him. So they got all kinds of nasty names that they made about us all the way back in Africa with no contact with us. No contact with us whatsoever. So, folks, maybe somebody will be able to, when I open up the Zoom, for the folks who are going to be required to call in, maybe they can explain to us exactly where that came from, because I'm like, apparently he's never been introduced to any of these little pet slurs that they've made about us. Apparently he hasn't, because by the way, y'all, tell me, what is the white equivalent of Akata? Damn! Oh, I just wanted to drop that bomb on y'all tonight. By the way, if this isn't about you Black Americans, then tell me, what is the white equivalent of Akata? got plenty of white racism going on. But by the way, okay, well, if we're the Akata, where's the slur for white people? Well, maybe somebody can send him an email and he can let us all know and inform us about that. But shouldn't there be an equivalent for white people? Oh, we got to wait for that answer? Okay, we got time tonight. I guess we'll wait for him to phone that one in.
They were going to be, they're doctors and lawyers. And so, but how do you get your people to understand the class dynamic, the caste dynamic, and the race dynamic all are playing out? Caste dynamic, class dynamic, and the race dynamic.
Okay. You all heard it for yourselves. There is a class dynamic, a caste dynamic, and a race dynamic playing out simultaneously. Caste, class, and race. So Professor Small is informing us that, by the way, there is a class dynamic that's playing out and a caste dynamic, and that we're just stuck on the race dynamic. But we need to understand there's levels to this, and we've been kind of short-sighted about the fact that there are so many levels to this. So fortunately, we have him here to go ahead and inform us about that. So that's very, very good here as well.
And our lack of knowledge of one another. That's why I do the tours. For 40 years, I've been doing tours to Africa. And then I brought tens of thousands of people so that they could see home and they could know our story. I'm trying to put together a Christmas trip right now, right? That's going to leave on the 14th of December. I'm way late because since I got back from Ghana in August, I had 6 funerals, 6 deaths in my family. So I've been going to funeral to funeral to funeral almost every week. That means flying to South Carolina, flying to Connecticut. And so I couldn't get my trip for December. But only a month ago, I'm still doing it. I'm just putting it together. Even while we were on, my secretary's been trying to reach me on the phone because I know she got to do a couple of things before she puts out this flyer. Because bringing the people to Africa and let them see their family, interact, and so many of them have moved to the continent who are retired, because I've been a lot of elders, a lot of retired people, and they've moved to Ghana especially.
Okay. Yeah, that part right there. Well, there's been a bunch of retirees. You mean the old? Okay. Yeah. Here's the thing right here. For those who came from the old days where you got a defined benefits pension before those civil rights Negroes and baby boomers allowed the corporations to get rid of traditional pensions and replace them with these scheming, scamming ass 401ks. So now the old folks who got their defined benefits pensions, they took care of themselves and said, man, damn them kids. Now they're telling us about the Globetrotting and the Tom Joyner cruise. And now that their income is guaranteed, of course, it's guaranteed on our backs, the part nobody talks about. We're the ones paying for it. They're not living off of what they actually earned. They're living off of what we made. And so, of course, now they're bragging about it. Well, I'm going to go live out in Africa. And then they go try that, and that's not turning out very well. So, once again, folks, the passport bros thing is not new. That's been around for decades. And for the folks who can afford to be traveling nomads, they'll hang out in one place. Y'all need to remember, this was a big thing back in the 60s and 70s. There's a lot of you who are a lot younger, so you don't know this, but that globe-trotting thing was a big thing among the hippies, the black hippies and whatnot. You know, they that was a thing for them, is going places and visiting places and things. So you think you're doing something new because you can post a picture on Instagram. Man, this has been around for decades. And this was really a big thing back then. It was more of a spiritual thing. They wanted to be this spiritual thing. Oh, I'm getting in touch with my roots. And they would get a big afro and dashiki and a headband, you know, looking like Jimi Hendrix. And so that was a thing for them back then when they were younger, and now they're on the other end of it. They're spoiled rotten, and now they're just revisiting the old days, even though, you know, the arthritis is set in and whatnot. So basically, don't be deceived. This is actually an old thing that's been going on for a while. You know what they're not doing? So many folks have moved to the continent, okay, and what are they doing when they get there? They don't have any power. They're not setting up an economy. They don't have anything for anybody else to go to. So you'll have one or two Negroes who own a 7-Eleven maybe, but nothing substantial or significant. And that's what we've been seeing the whole time. So once again, so many have moved there. We can't tell. There isn't anything of any real significance happening. If there were, once again, you would point to that. You wouldn't have to argue with us. You would just show us. In Saudi Arabia, they can show you the line. In China, they can show you all of their skyscrapers they built. In Dubai, they can show you all their skyscrapers. United Arab Emirates, they can all show you the Burj Khalifa and everything else they built there. Okay, if they were popping things in Ghana, they would just show it to us. If we can show you a rap concert in America, if anything was actually popping with the expatriates in Africa, they would show us what they've done to show that, hey, just like Christopher Columbus's voyage worked out, just like his expedition worked out, hey, our expedition has worked out for us over here. And they wouldn't argue with us. They would just show us and just say, hey, this is what we've done. It may be humble, it may be modest, but they would just show it. And from there, ain't no argument to be had. It's either you agree with mathematics or you're fighting against mathematics. Now, explain to me why it is the showing part has been very, very slow. Simple. Just saying. Now, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit here because there's something else here. And once again, I'm not going to really dwell on this seriously long. But I want to go ahead and get this out of the way. Now. And once I get this out of the way, then we'll go ahead and come back to some other things. But I'm going to go ahead and play these things for you all. Make of it what you will.
Getting those things accomplished, supplying those needs. So, well, Africans want to be free. Thank you. You know. But I'm glad to come and hang out with you for a minute, and we get to know each other. But we always knew each other. Yeah. We're Africans. We're fighting the same enemies, no matter where we are in the world. They just have a different face on them, maybe a little different strategy. But the biggest thing they're trying to do is make sure to divide us in the West from you on the continent. So if you're going to look at that thing, it's not a rift between some black Americans and some Africans. That's the U.S. State Department. It may have started out with a few ignorant people, but they knew how to take advantage of that ignorance. But I don't even think it started out with a few ignorant people. I think they started it. They tested the water with that first group, that lawyer woman from California and the man, and then somehow they got to Tariq Nasheed. If you remember, Tariq Nasheed was going in just the opposite direction a few years ago. Why did that U-turn occur? Now, like I said, I was surprised because I watched all the Hidden Colors. That's where I discovered you, from the Hidden Colors. And I'm like, how did you move from the Hidden Colors to this? Like, it doesn't, yeah. Well, he may not be an agent. He just may be disgusted and tired of thinking that he's being taken advantage of by his brothers and sisters from the continent because of his own ignorance. Just like the brothers and sisters from the continent think they're being taken advantage of when they come over here by some of us. And that's from a lack of relationship. And I'm telling you, that the State Department and the American Immigration Department is right at the center of that.
He may not be an agent. Of everything I heard there, that kind of stuck out to me. You all know me. I don't throw that word agent around. I don't throw that term agent around. You all know me. You can go back and look through my program. You can count probably on one hand the number of times you've ever heard me use the word agent. That's not a word I use because that word means something. That's not something you just, in the internet age, people just sit up here and milk metaphors and hyperboles all over the place. Words matter in that regard when you use something like that. So once again, I'm not here to play public relations or anything. I will just say that when you're talking about FBA in that regard, and when you start talking about folks being agents, maybe they're not. It's like, okay, because I'm remembering Karanga and folk, and I'm just like, okay, I'm not really sure you want to start this. I'm not really sure this is how you want to approach that. I really, really don't. But like I say, there was that, and once again, I'm just going to touch on this really quickly, and then I'm going to move on. I'm not going to do a whole lot about this. I'm going to touch on it very, very quickly, and then I'm going to move on. Something happened. I'm not really sure what it is. Once again, like I say, they'll be able to speak for themselves, if they want to comment on it. But in case you all were not aware, the only reason I'm doing this is because this is being used as a tool to attack, the foundational identity in that regard. So on top of what you just heard, there was also this.
My group, and pay my respects to the family. But we just need to do more things together. We need to learn more about one another's history, because you can't fight a Tariq Nasheed unless you know history. Now, he's not a good historian, but he got enough facts because he's a good researcher that he can put you back, even when his facts is wrong. So you don't have to have the right facts. You have to have the right methodology to win a debate. But if you get the right facts, his methodology doesn't matter. I can beat him down, but that'll just be another two black people fighting on the internet, and I refuse to do that. I've talked to him privately. I don't feel he has shown the respect he should have, given the conversations we've had about this issue. And I will find a way to even come out more publicly again. I've come out about it publicly many times, but it's a little thing, because in one way, but this internet makes it a big thing. But you got to remember, the masses of our people ain't paying no kind of attention to Tariq. The people who go with me on the trip to Africa, the working class people, the middle class people, the retired people, they don't give a shit about that. And even the young people who go to Africa, they're already Pan-Africanists. They ain't even thinking about him. They're angry with him. And I tell them, don't be angry. Find out what is stimulating that. Because if you don't find the causation, you're not going to solve that problem. And the cause is we need to do more together.
I have my own thoughts in this regard. I have my own perspective and my own thoughts in this regard. Some of it I may say, a lot of it I'm not going to say, but I do have my own feelings about where that might be coming from. So I'm just going to say I kind of understand. Sometimes I see egos at play. This is not private. If you do have a way to contact him privately, especially from a manhood perspective, because a lot of these old folks out here, y'all, I'm going to get to that later. I'm just going to circle back to that later. But it's like, dude, we just heard, okay, yeah, you should be talking to him privately. You should not be saying that publicly. So we're going to, for those of us who are on code, that's a side-eye thing. That's really a side-eye thing. I got my own thoughts about this, and maybe I'll go ahead and elaborate in a little bit, but I want to go ahead and just get that part out of the way since I had made it to this particular part in the video. I wanted to go ahead and just get that out of the way. So in case any of you were wondering what it was about, and maybe I'm pretty sure a lot of you may have heard that there were things that were said or implied. And, you know, a lot of folks out there, they didn't watch this because it goes on for a while. But you know me, I got a long attention span. So for those of you who might have heard inklings of things, I want to go ahead and get that out of the way, because I know a lot of you, you got strong feelings in this regard. Make of it what you will. You can see I'm taking great pains not to color this. You all make of that what you will, but you heard that just like I did. You can do with that, whatever you're going to do with that. I have some thoughts about the context and the environment of it, but I'm going to come back to that because it's part of a greater, larger discussion, and I want to deal with that as its own separate thing, not having to put a blurb on it in between. I'll make my thoughts about it clearer here for you all here in just a few moments here. So let me go ahead and get you to the next part here. Okay. Let me go ahead and pop y'all into the next part.
Now, as time go on and you learn better, you're caught in an isolated situation, and there isn't much you could do there. I remember I didn't know this. One of my professors, Professor Kumanweri, Peresi Kumanweri, who's from Uganda, who was a friend of Malcolm, when him and a bunch of students from Uganda came to study at Columbia, and they were told never, Columbia's in Harlem, but up on the hill. So they were told never to go down the hill, that we would kill them, that they would, of course he came down the hill because that made the African brothers curious. And he married a sister from South Carolina, almost my town, Sister Carolyn.
Okay, so obviously they knew it was a lie. Okay, so right there, thank you for saying that, but that really just proves they knew it was a lie, if it was ever actually said to them at all. But if it was said to them, well, very clearly they understood that, yeah, that's not real, that's a lie. Which is the point we've been making the whole time.
We're married about 60 years now. But Perezi says, no, this is the program. And they're still doing it. The U.S. State Department is still instructing and informing African people who are migrating legally to the country not to have anything to do with us.
Okay, folks, Professor Small, there's a little thing called the internet. It's been around since the 70s, publicly commercially available since the late 80s. Most of Africa got internet access. We sit up here and deal with them on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, every hour of every day. They have direct access to us. They have direct communication to us. They don't have to come over here. They got direct communication to us now. Professor Small, I know you're a little bit older, and I know this is kind of different and novel, but sir, do you all understand? I keep referring to him as sir. Professor Small, most people's relationships today are formed online. What? Most people today do not meet each other in person, sir. When you were a young man, that was how people met each other. When you wanted to get a job, when you wanted to meet a female, when you wanted to buy groceries, you had to meet people in person, especially for interpersonal relationships, interpersonal interactions. Sir, that hasn't been a thing now going on 2 decades. The last 2 decades have abrogated most of that. So people are, sir, and you come from the free love era, so y'all had to meet up at a concert or a grocery store to have casual sex. Man, we got whole websites that do that now. I'm talking about folk are getting on airplanes. You can be talking to a chick this morning, and you can be on an airplane and in her bed this afternoon.
And deal with it.
That's the world today. They don't have to meet you in person. They can go directly from you both being on the same social media site. Every social media site's got the ability to call somebody. You can, if you see someone on Facebook, you can immediately, if y'all two are vibing, you can immediately call each other. You can go directly from typing comments to talking to each other and nobody else knows. If you want to text, you got DMs. Every social media site has this same interaction. Maybe not Twitter, but I'm sure Twitter's got something close. Another got DMs. But practically all of them. So there's no separation between you and anybody else on the planet. The Passport Bros is simply about dudes saying, hey, don't just restrict hooking up domestically. The Passport Bros is just about, hey, buying a plane ticket. There's no stigma to it. That's all the Passport Bros is about, that there's no stigma to getting a plane ticket and hooking up internationally. So, sir, once in addition to many of the other obsolete things that we've heard during this video, sir, that is obsolete to talk about, what they thought or what they believed after they got here. They talk to us all the time. We talk to them all the time, sir. This is not a matter of, they don't have any interaction with us. This isn't the 1970s. Because it wasn't true in the 70s. Ask Barack Obama's daddy. What? Damn! Sir, this has been a lie since Barack Obama's daddy. We know this isn't true. Barack Obama's father was not an anomaly. This is why I have to remind people is that, by the way, if what he's saying is accurate, then how am I able to name all these names and show you specific examples? I'm talking about from 4 or 5 decades ago. It can't all be true. So, no, sir, we interact with them. They talk to us. They come into contact with us. They know all of our music. They know all of our slang. They know all of our TV shows. They know the hot spots we go to. They know our dress. They know the code, the culture, the slang, the vernacular. They know all of that while they're sitting in Kenya on Instagram. They copy the hairstyles and everything else. Hell, a bunch of these fellas done been over there or brought them chicks over here, or the dudes. What? So in case nobody told you, man, they've been hooking up for a while. That's not new. They've been hooking up for a while. So once again, this is just obsolete. It's antiquated. It isn't just obsolete. This is antiquated. It's like, bruh, it's 2025. And this has been going on for decades. This is not new. I'm not informing anybody else. Hey, you can call people up on Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram. Everybody knows it. Everybody's doing it. You got YouTube personalities. That's all they do. So no, sir, nobody is getting introduced to us after they touch American soil. Everyone has free exposure to us long before they ever get here. Once again, that's a very crucial detail that when you omit those details, now I'm just going to say that you just either don't know, or this is from outside, this is idiosyncratic, or this is anachronistic. This is not really within your chronological frame of reference, so you don't really respond to it quickly. I'm going to say that. I'm not going to cast aspersions. I'm just going to say, man, no, sir. This doesn't work this way anywhere. So I'm not going to make accusations. I'm going to instead say, well, I'm hopeful that maybe it's because there's an age gap here and you just don't know because you don't really rock with the apps like that or whatever, but you are in an internet world. You are not in a terra firma world. You are not in a touch the grass world. You're in an internet world. Everybody meets each other and encounters each other and contacts each other there. The person across the street or the person across the planet. You can talk to them all in the exact same real time. So no, sir, whatever impressions they got about you, they got those sitting right there in their chair, in their living room, in her bed wearing her camisole, she came to these conclusions and formed those opinions there. It's not something she had to fight and work to get to, or, ooh, you know, I talked to these other folks. I didn't know nothing about y'all before I got over here. I didn't really know nothing about y'all before I got over here. Now that I got over here, though, I found out it's a new thing.
And so this bitterness has a lot of little things that grow them. Our people don't want to be caught in that situation, but if the State Department is telling you that, and you're trying to get your green card and a citizenship and a job or enter college, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, I'm not listening to y'all, and be thrown back on a plane and sent back to Guinea? You're not going to do that.
Exactly.
You're going to reluctantly go along with that process. And then that process starts building. And then you got the African Americans who just play in ignorance, but we don't know how much American State Department or Justice Department is involved in Foundation of Black America. Who's getting paid the money to say what they're saying?
Okay, let me go ahead. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to roll this back here in just a moment. Now, I got to deal with this. Let's be very, very clear about something. When you start that COINTELPRO talk, you got to have something to substantiate that. You don't just sit up here and throw out COINTELPRO talk because you don't really have a debate point to make. No, man, you don't just say that. You got to have something to substantiate that. So if you don't actually have something to substantiate that, then you can't say nothing like that. So don't throw out speculation like that when you have absolutely no basis for making it. Now, if you do, well, put it on the bricks. Don't be hiding it. If you have any information somewhere that would concretely, definitively prove that there's some sort of money changing hands, you need to put that on the bricks. You see, I'm not sitting up here making up nothing about Roland Martin. Speaking of foreigners, we're not making it up about Roland Martin. We have proof that he was in direct contact behind the scenes with Hillary Clinton's campaign and Donna Brazile. He was their go-between. That's not speculation. That's not an assumption. We got proof. And we have proof that he was paid by Kamala Harris's campaign. But it wasn't just her. He's received money from the DNC. We got proof of that. Which is why he's always threatening and begging and this, that, and the other. But I'm not making that up. That's publicly available information now. When we found it was available, we put it out there. We always said he was a coon. And we always said we suspected things, but it's like, okay, other than that, where's your proof? Okay, the proof is over a decade old now. So if you don't have that, hey, don't be throwing shade and throwing aspersions. That's not making a point. So if you don't actually have concrete proof, don't start with the COINTELPRO talk. That goes for everybody. I'm not just checking Professor Small on this. That goes for everybody here. Don't start with the COINTELPRO talk if you don't have something concrete to substantiate that. And if you do, then you need to show that the same way that we did. I didn't throw aspersions about Steve Harvey. I showed you him admitting that he rolls with Kamala Harris. Same thing with D.L. Hughley. Showed you that. So that's not me casting aspersions and making assumptions and you throwing hints out there. You making suggestions. No, there's proof. There's proof. There is proof. So if you got proof, then you can make those kinds of statements and those kind of inferences. If you don't have proof, that wrecks your reputation, man. So if you got it, show it. If you don't, find another attack vector. I'm not even saying, obviously, if there's animosity or whatever, okay, it is what it is. If you got animosity, okay. But when you got credentials on your name or you want to be taken seriously, you can't do the Instagram flaming thing, throwing shots at people and just making stuff up. You got to have some proof behind that. Because if you say this and you never show that there was anything behind it, it's like, okay, now you just get a reputation for just saying stuff. So in the modern day, today, no, you don't get to just throw grenades and then run, oh, this'll sound scandalous. No, we ain't doing that.
Plaintiffs in that beginning. You're not going to do that.
Exactly.
You're going to reluctantly go along with that process. And then that process start building. And then you got the African Americans who just play in ignorance, but we don't know how much American State Department or Justice Department is involved in Foundation of Black America. Who's getting paid the money to say what they're saying? There's a paper.
We know who got paid in the Black Lives Matter organization, y'all. It wouldn't be this hard. So what I'm saying is that this these kind of attempts right here, this is beneath. It should be beneath some people, folks. If anybody was getting paid, it wouldn't be hard to find it. We knew who was getting paid in the Black Lives Matter organization, not the movement, the organization. We knew who was getting paid back when they first hit the streets. The folks who are out here with a shoestring budget, putting stuff together with bubble gum and baling wire, you ain't getting no money. If anybody was getting paid anything, we would know. When Black Lives Matter's organization, their little agents and apparatchiks, yes, I said agents, when they were getting paid, everybody knew. Fox News is talking about it. Everybody knew what was going on. So with as many of us are out here, if anybody was getting paid something, Trump's FBI or CIA or whatever would have already have leaked it. Fox would already be talking about it. So once again, this is disingenuous, all due respect, but this is disingenuous to sit up here and try to throw that little slant out there. If anybody was getting paid something, it would already be news. There are too many of us to hide it. So if it were actually a real thing, it would have already been out there by now. It would not be some state secret. It would already be out there. They would have already leaked it. It would have to be a whole bunch of people. It couldn't be just one person. It had to be a whole bunch of folk. People, we ain't got no secrets. Those of us who are fighting the system of white supremacy, we ain't got no secrets. So to act as if there could be in any at this point, at this stage right here, is, come on, man, that's disingenuous. No way. That just can't happen. Saying salacious things for the point of saying being salacious, it's like, okay, it's just not reliable.
Plaintiffs in that beginning. You're not going to do that.
Exactly.
You're going to reluctantly go along with that process. And then that process start building. And then you got the African Americans who just play in ignorance, but we don't know how much American State Department or Justice Department is involved in Foundation of Black America. Who's getting paid the money to say what they're saying? There's a paper. It's a white paper. You could probably find it online. It was done by a man named Brezhnev Brzezinski. He was the national security director under Jimmy Carter. And his white paper, the first paragraph, he said that the policy of the United States of America is that African American and Africans should never unite politically, culturally, or economically. That is still the policy of the government of the United States. So what you're seeing ain't quite what you see, and there's only a piece of what you see. You understand what I'm telling you?
I do.
Just because they come in a black
big news.
If you know about Zbigniew Brzezinski's white paper, then you would know if anybody was getting paid. You would know that too. I mean, if you got that kind of insight, and we do, well then, yeah, you would also know the rest of that as well. It once again, people, this would not be some giant state secret. It wouldn't be, because it couldn't be.
A black face don't mean
and
you're the FBI, all right? A black face don't mean you ain't the FBI, okay? Wearing a dashiki don't mean you're a nationalist, okay?
Okay, Professor Small, yes, you're absolutely right about that. Just because you get a black face does not mean that you're not an arm of the government. So folks need to be careful about making those suggestions because, yeah, you could look at just about anybody with their behavior and make that accusation. So, yeah, folks need to be very careful about doing that kind of thing. And by the way, take a look at the dude over here just cheesing and grinning. Professor Small, that's your first sign right there that that's not good. He's just sitting over here cheesing. All right.
So once you get clear on these things, that's why studying history is important. You'll see how Fred Hampton was killed. You see how Malcolm X was killed. They were both surrounded by agents and collaborators that looked just like us. So you can bet some of the foundational Black American people are agents, and even some from the African sides are agents. You know, I've seen my brothers and sisters from the continent be recruited by the State Department, and I tried to pull the coattail of their parents. But if your son is being brought to America, given a free education, who's gonna listen to me?
Okay, once again, if you know there are any agents, well, then you should be naming them. If you're not, let's not even make suggestions like that, because that's just not a good look. That's not a good look to just make wild claims and what's substantiated. I got a feeling, I do know things. Somebody hanging out on Twitter does not constitute a CIA asset. Somebody who's just hanging out on Twitter does not constitute an FBI, CIA, FBA asset. It's not the way that works. We're gonna skip forward here and whatnot. Like I say, I'm just bringing y'all the Cliff Notes version, giving you the Cliff Notes version here. Now, he would like to talk to you a little bit more now about neo-colonialism. He'd like to take a moment here to educate you all about neo-colonialism.
The people would have to make the choice who they want as their president. But we have to understand how colonialism works, how neo-colonialism works. And reading Kwame Nkrumah's book, Neo-Colonialism, is one of the best books you can get on the subject. That'll explain this foundational Black American thing and all that. Because you'll see what the strategy is.
Okay, so he's telling us that if you read this book about neo-colonialism, then this book about neo-colonialism will explain everything to you about this FBA thing. That's a very interesting thesis to form there, that neo-colonialism will not explain Pan-Africanism. What? Oh, so neo-colonialism won't explain Pan-Africanism, but it would explain this FBA thing. Because I'm like, by the way, taking a look at the results, if you take a look at the results, especially of the latter-day Pan-Africanists, when you take a look at those results, I actually think you learn more about neo-colonialism by looking at that. But we'd just like to let you all know that, by the way, if you study neo-colonialism, then you could learn a lot about FBA, apparently. So, all right, that's all very interesting there.
Once you know what the strategy is and what the goal is, you'll recognize the tools when you see them at play. You know, you'll recognize the tool.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wow.
But we're going to talk about our love for one another, no matter what part of the world we're in, whether we're in Cambodia. I get calls from African brothers from the continent who live in Thailand, who live in Dubai. They listen to my tapes, and they call me all the time.
People from the continent who live in Thailand, who live in Dubai, are they over there talking trash and talking crap about the Thais or the people in Dubai, United Arab Emirates? Are they talking trash about them? Do they have an Akata name for them folk? Are they on Twitter talking crazy about them folks over there? You know, people who didn't open up nothing for them, by the way, but I just wondered, are they talking salty about those people? Are they giving those people over there the same treatment? And if not, why not? Because the U.S. State Department got plenty to say about both those places. So obviously, if this isn't about a character flaw in the culture, then they got the same behavior in these other places too, right? They behave the same in these other places, correct? Certainly there's not suddenly a big change when they go somewhere else, right? Because if there's a big change when they get somewhere else, well now, okay, you can't claim that's not conscious anymore. No, that's not, I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It's not that. That's not what it is. It's something else.
And I give so wherever we are in the world, we're Africans. I think that's Peter Tosh. When we listen to Peter, listen to the records of Peter Tosh, Peter tell you that we are an African.
I love it. Yeah.
And he cries,
by the way, Prof.
So we just have to tell our side. Let's let the Foundation Black America do their talk, but let's talk about our history. Let's talk about Nkrumah. Let's talk about the boys. Let's talk about Paul Robeson. Let's talk about Nani. Let's talk about Nzinga. Let's talk about what's happening now. Let's talk about all of the young African Americans that have moved to Ghana, Kenya, and Nigeria. Let's talk about all the Kenyan and the Nigerian Tanzanian who lives now in North America, who's not involved in any of this foolishness. But they're married into each other. They're raising their children, sending them to college. They're coming back and forth home, visiting their families. Let us tell our story.
You know what? I think that's a great idea. I actually think that's a wonderful idea. I would like to know more about how we've been welcomed and integrated into Ghana and Kenya, and that we just don't understand it. Talking about anything else is foolishness. So I got a few questions I would like to ask about that. I'm going to save it for right now, but we're going to come back to this one. We'll come back to this one here. So glad you made that suggestion. We'll come back to this one. Now, I want to let this next part play because I think this will connect a lot of dots for a lot of you here. I'm going to let this play out for the next few seconds so that you can hear the setup for it. So when he gets to the next part here, once again, and this, as I say, once again, this is not a flame session. This is not a roast. This is a teaching moment. And hopefully we can help get him educated about this.
They're telling their false narrative. Let us over and over tell our story and let our story overtake their story. Because we got a better story.
Okay. He has a better story.
We got a story about African love. That's what Pan-Africanism is about. African unity. That's what Pan-Africanism is about. African understanding of our history and our culture. That's what Pan-Africanism is about. Talking about people sell people into slavery. So what you going to do about all the Black Americans selling dope on the streets every day? Okay, I'm talking about somebody sold you into slavery. Well, what do you think they're doing? Selling dope to our babies. What are you going to say about all the ones that's in the streets and killing the little boy and killing the mother going to work?
Professor Small, would you like to talk about the hundreds of Nigerians that were killed in the last couple of weeks at schools? You want to talk about children being killed? Professor Small, would you like to have a conversation about children being killed, sir? Wholesale. Would you like to talk about rape? Would you like to talk about rape against children? I mean, against schools. I'm specifically targeting schools, not a school-age child, specifically targeting the building that they go to school in, and not just one kid at random. I'm sure we've all seen the headlines from just the last 3 weeks. That's a whole nother planet from what in the world you talking about. So no, sir, we can have this conversation because we don't know nothing about that. We can have that conversation, sir. Once again, I would love to be able to sit down and educate you about this because very clearly we're talking about current events. And very clearly, either you're not aware of it or you don't want to talk about it because it gets in the way of something else. That's not cool. So, no, dude, that doesn't work out. That math don't work out. We see too much all the time. So if you want to have that conversation, I'll have that conversation every day of the week and twice on Tuesdays. I mean, we ain't talking about one random kid somewhere. Oh, yeah, and one more thing, because he's about to talk about this. By the way, no rap music required. What? One more thing. Everybody wants to act like we're the root of all evil and all this stuff right here. You got places that don't even have electricity. They've got a body count that makes the south side of Chicago on its wildest weekend look like Ocean Boulevard in Miami. In case you were not aware of, I don't know, the facts and the math, not an agenda where you just throw out some statement because there's an agenda behind it. No, I'm talking about the math. I'm talking about the math. So yes, I'll be glad to get into that anytime. We can go ahead and go stat for stat, number for number, death for death, circumstance and factor for circumstance and factor. We can do that anytime. I don't think you're going to be thrilled with the results if you have an agenda to push. If you're just dealing with the facts of it, by the way, I have no problem having that discussion. Who got sold into slavery versus a random street corner? I have no problem with that at all. None. None. That'll work for me.
Talking about people sell people into slavery. So what you going to do about all the black Americans selling dope on the streets every day? Okay, you're talking about somebody sold you into slavery. Well, what do you think they're doing? Selling dope to our babies. What are you going to say about all the ones that shooting in the streets and killing the little boy and killing the mother going to work? You know, what are you going to do? You spend 50 years with a music called hip hop and rap that call your mama a whore and your sister a whore and a bitch. And you glorifying it, jumping around and dancing over it. We got to know how to fight back. You understand? By telling our story. This is what's important. This is what being African look like. Tell the story to people who've moved back home successfully. There have been some bad moves, but hell, there have been some bad moves from South Carolina to North Carolina. So don't tell me about a bad move from New York to Accra and things didn't work out. I know people who moved from Brooklyn to Queens and things didn't work out.
Okay, but things didn't work out, but the reason it didn't work out wasn't because of, you're Akadas. It wasn't because of that. You don't have a black government built from the ground up. That's not the reason it didn't work out. Trying to move from one enclave in the system of white supremacy to another enclave in the system of white supremacy. That's a whole different thing than going someplace with some other folk right there who are they black like you, but targeting you. So no, sir, that's not even remotely the same thing. That is not the same thing. That's not, it didn't work out. That is, you were targeted and engineered. Now, I could go on for a while here. Some folks in the chat room have been making a comment. Some folks in the chat room have been making a comment. I've seen that. So I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit here, and I'm going to play this next part so you all can hear this, because he had a little bit of a soliloquy to give here. But I think this may address some of the things that some of you may have been saying here. And I heard something that he had to say here. I found it to be a bit interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and let this play. Once again, I'm backing it up so that it is in its full context. It'll be recited in its full context so you all can hear this.
Them. We shouldn't throw the cups and the plastics in them. You know, said once a month we're going to come and we take one house in the village and we're all going together and help finish building that one house for that poor man. Then next month or 2 months, we go to another house in that same village and we help to build that house for that poor family. Let that be our mission. And let's see what that does to us as Kenyans.
Did I hear that correctly? Let me back that up just one more time. My Humpty ears might have deceived me.
To build that house for that poor family. Let that be our mission. And let's see what that does to us as Kenyans. Become one with one another.
Okay. I don't know, folks. Paperwork check. Paperwork check. Does he mean that metaphorically? I'm asking y'all. I don't have the answer. You tell me. Does he mean that metaphorically? Or does he mean that culturally and genetically? Does he mean that ethnically? Because I heard that like you all did. So, look, I'm not making a determination just yet. I am saying, by the way, I did hear that. And I'm just asking, well, now that he said that, I'm just curious. I would like to have some details. Can you feel me? I'd like to have some details. So if he means that metaphorically or spiritually, or he was just, having a figure of speech, okay. But if it kind of rolled off the tongue, if he means it in some other way, because I didn't hear him say we're Ethiopians. I've heard him say we're Africans, and now we're Kenyan. I'm just curious, although it would explain a lot in that regard. Now, once again, I'm being respectful. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm not attacking anybody. I am saying that, by the way, these are some statements that need to be addressed because we didn't just come to this position because we're guessing our way through it, or there was some U.S. government agency that incentivized us to it. We came to this based on our observations in our lives. And for somebody to jump up on the internet and tell us that what we observe with our eyes and what we see and experience every day, we need to disregard that so that we can embrace their ideology of Pan-Africanism. That's what we need to do. Ignore the evidence in front of your eyes so you can embrace their ideology so that they can continue with that. That's not just disserving yourself. That's really betraying everything. You don't betray your eyes. You do not betray your eyes. Your eyes are showing you what it is. Now, you need to figure out why your eyes are seeing that. But for somebody to tell you, what your eyes are showing you, that ain't really what it is. Yes, it is, especially when it goes on decade after decade. And when we're approaching other people and they're not responding to us the way that we respond to them, there's where the issue comes in. Now that I've played for you all the video of it here, I tried to wrap this up as quickly as I could. It took me over an hour and a half to do this, but as you all can see, there was a lot to go through. Nobody's going to be able to accuse me of taking anything out of context. There was other stuff too, as a matter of fact. So if you want to go watch the whole video, it is there available for you, I suppose, if you want to go do that. But now that I think you all have heard enough. I might be wrong, but I think you all agree that you've heard enough at this point. If you want to hear more, maybe I'll go more into it. But I think with all the clips I played, as extensively as I've played them, I think you've heard enough that you feel that what you've gotten tonight has been reliable. So if there's anybody who feels that it wasn't reliable, Jason is out of context, can you play some more? That there's something missing, or that there's a detail missing, or an element missing, or just let me know if you think you need to hear more. But I think most of you will agree that you heard enough and that you don't think anything's being misconstrued or taken out of context. I think the context has been very clear. All right. See, the reason why Charlie Kirk's people look like fools is because every time you play his clips, they keep saying not in context, not in context. Dude, if I can't play 20 straight minutes of Charlie Kirk and it's out of context. You sound insane. 2 straight minutes, that's not out of context. Those are his words. Might not be happy with the ramifications of it, but those are his words. So that occurred. But now I got something else to say. I've got something else to say here in this regard. And once again, I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else. I am not speaking on behalf of anyone else. I am not speaking in defense of anyone else. I am speaking strictly for myself here. And the things I want to say here are strictly my position. It's just mine. So don't try to extend it to anybody else. Don't try to convey it on anybody else or transfer it to anyone else. This is just me. And before I say anything else, I want to be clear that I am doing this and saying this as respectfully as possible. This is not a roast. This is not a flame session. It's not a clown session. I'm keeping it straight down the middle here. Professor Small made a statement about going to Africa. He even talked about his kinfolk. Maybe one day when they retire, maybe they'll go to Africa. Maybe they'll move to Ghana. Everybody keeps talking about Ghana like it's the hot spot, like it's the Miami hot spot. And here's the issue that I have. Professor Small and anyone else who would like to take that position, I have a question about this this paradise, this promised land they keep talking about in Ghana. I've been covering this now going on 2 decades. And we all have seen folk who went there and nobody's got a good story to tell. But if he wants to claim that things have turned out so great, I have a question, Professor Small. If you want to claim that we have not treated them outrageously better across the board than they've treated us, then I want to ask a question. Show me one descendant of American slaves who has moved over to Ghana, to South Africa, to Ethiopia, to Kenya, and gotten on TV there and said, "You're all lazy." What? The Afrikaners just work harder than you, and you blame all your problems on them. Show me one of us, not 5, not 10, not 3, just one who has ever walked their nappy ass on African soil and pulled a Candace Owens or a Coleman Cruz. Show me just one. Show me one black person, the descendants of American slaves, who has relocated to the African continent and shown their ass like that. Just one. Show me who's got the YouTube program, the Twitter space, the Clubhouse, the Instagram Live. Show me one that you can name. Just one. It should be real easy after what we've heard tonight. That should be very simple. Hell, I'll let you use Google. I'll let you Google and see if you can find one. Show me one of us who has gone on African soil and ever spoke in defense of the white supremacist establishment and society in its oppression of Native Africans. Show me one of us who's gone over there and told them that, well, you're getting oppressed. You're not oppressed. You just ain't working hard enough. You just ain't doing enough. Ain't no racism. Show me one of us who's gone over there and said that. One. And about this Ghana Nirvana, show me one descendant, all these thousands of people that you say you're taking over there, and I'm not going to argue against that, although the math, I'm not going to dispute the math on it, although it sounds a little questionable, but I'll just take you at your word that there's thousands, tens of thousands, arenas full of black folk you've taken over there to Africa, and that they've been through Ghana. Show me one descendant of American slaves who currently resides in Ghana who has been elected to political office.
And deal with it.
Damn right I'm yelling it because ain't nobody else telling it. But you know, you can shut this all down real easy. If you want to convince me, because I can show you the Africans Caribbeans. I'm talking about some of the worst backstabbers. Some of the worst, most treacherous, skullduggerous, duplicitous, deceptive, deceitful, scummy backstabbers who have gotten elected among us, fresh off the plane, fresh off the boat, kissing white ass. Show me one of us standing on their soil who has been elected to office in Ghana. Since you claim that there's so much intermingling, intermarrying, ain't no issues, they just getting on with their lives, everything's good. Okay, you ain't got no proof if you cannot show that they've got equal power. See, they can come over here and get raised up. They can come over here and be in positions of quote unquote leadership. Show me where we are gaining positions of leadership over there. Because if you can't show that, I didn't destroy your point, you did. So once again, it ain't no debate. It's not a negotiation. Just start naming the names. Just name the names. Name the names and name what political office they're in. Show me the elected political office that they're in. That shows us that the native population does not hold us in contempt. And that they are extending the same to us. Because we've been doing that for decades. They've seen us doing that for decades. They would not be coming to America if they thought that we were hostile to them. So there's another lie exposed. They would not be coming to America if they thought that we were hostile to them. Because they don't live among white folk, they live among us. Or adjacent or next to us. So they don't think we're hostile to them, but over there, by the way, it should be real easy for you to show that to us if it actually exists. But once again, just like your so-called black enclaves and neighborhoods over there, you would just show us if it were there. Once again, folks, no disrespect. I'm just naming off facts and math. If you're going to tell us about going to Ghana, did we go to Ghana on equal footing, or are we over there to serve and to bring our American dollars to boost their economy? If we got a better idea and we got a better game plan and we're more on code, then we don't just need to be dropping money. We need to be leading. So you see, if they got a better idea, we have no problem allowing them to lead if they have a better idea. If we definitely got a ton of better ideas. We are the front runner. We are the leader. We are the trendsetter. If we're in Ghana, show me where they have brought us in and put us in leadership positions. Show us where we get that. If you want to shut it down, that's all you got to do right there. I don't need to hear about the tour thing. And once again, let me say this respectfully, sir. Once again, I keep saying, sir. Let me say this respectfully, sir. No ad hominem, no straw men, no nothing, no internet beefing. But I got to say this. If that's not going to hold a lot of weight with us when the older folks start talking about these things. We are not looking to be international tourists. That was y'all's get down in the 60s and 70s. We are not the least bit interested in being international globetrotters and international tourists. And a bunch of y'all, you spent your lives traveling, you were in the military, you saw things, and you've come out confused. Well, guess what? We travel too. The difference is we're not confused. We're not confused. Furthermore, you can't show us anybody over there who's talking the same way you are. They get on the internet and sit up here and play y'all for that. But when it comes to policy, you live in a system of white supremacy, and you know, because when you look at what is the government's policy, you see what the policy of the U.S. government is in its laws and how they treat us. A whole bunch of white folk tell us they see racism. Oh, racism is bad. Racism is terrible. We recognize racism right up until we tell them, great. Now, what about this policy? Oh, we ain't changing that policy. So they acknowledge racism and white supremacy exists, but the policy gonna stay the same. Oh, this white supremacist policy is terrible. Yeah, we should change it. No, we shouldn't. Well, and that's the same game that the black folk in the diaspora play. They love you talking about unity, but here's the difference. We don't give a damn about unity.
And deal with it, nigga.
We don't give a damn about unity. Unity is a slogan. If your definition of unity is we take care of everybody else and everybody else stabs us in the back and we play along like, oh, he didn't know what he was doing. He stabs you in the back every damn day. Of course he knows what he's doing. He's like the mailman. He can't show up every day with a new knife to shove in your back and not every day he's confused. He ain't stabbing nobody else in the back, just you. By your own admission, he ain't stabbing the Thais in the back. He's not stabbing the Arabs in the back. He ain't stabbing the whites in the back. All of a sudden they show up to us and okay, here comes the knife. And that's why you're trying to sell us on that unity thing, because you can't sell us on math. And we have said, if unity means we gotta be a fool, to hell with your definition of unity. Unity needs to be empowering. You're talking about everything except that. Now I want to go a little bit further. With all due respect, I keep prefacing that because I am sincere about that. I don't want folks to get the wrong impression about anything, but with all due respect, a lot of these cats over the last 4 decades, and it's about time we talked about this. A lot of these cats over the last 4 decades, they were in the military, so they had passports. They got around places. They saw things. They were sent to Asia. Before that, they were sent to Europe. Then they were sent to Asia. But some of them decided to make a detour into Africa or South America. And that's why you see so many of these dudes with gray hairs and gray beards coming back to the internet today, talking about passport bros and stuff and talking about Africa and South America. So if you really want to know where it came from, that's where it came from. A lot of ex-military dudes, they get a military pension, whatever the case may be. And so that's what really finances it. Not something built from the ground up, but, you know, and I'm not dissing. I'm just saying, I want you to understand it is what it is. So then they come back out here and they spend a few decades. Some of them went exploring. It wasn't just Frank Lucas, people. A lot of these cats, they went exploring these places. They went exploring these places. They went looking around and white dudes do this too, by the way. The white dudes do this, although many of them are mercenaries. So you have a lot of white dudes out there who are contractors, quote, security contractors. So these people who have gone and explored some of these other continents, I say explored compared to the rest of us, they got more of a handle about getting around and stuff. They were more adventurous. That's great. That's cool. Some of them decided to make that a business. Some of them decided that because they explored more and seen more and they got around and investigated more and found out more things, they started making a business out of it. So if you want to go somewhere, they went when they were in the military. So they had guns. They pacified the places. So they're more aware of what's happening there. And that a lot of them made businesses out of it. So they'll take you on tours because they went to these places when they were in the military or adjacent to the military. You got military bases all over the damn place, which was the goal. And so a lot of them made businesses. A lot of them have some, financial interests in these places. A lot of these folks have financial interests in these places. So you see, if the current relevant social media influencers are saying things that don't make you so enthusiastic to go to these places, especially a niche market, American expatriates going to Africa, that's a niche market. Well, if you got folks in the influencer community and they're saying things that don't really get you excited to do that, Well, for some of these other folks, they start noticing and things start drying up and the numbers start falling off and the mentions start going down and, you know, the money ain't coming like it was because people are not as interested in going because this generation sees going there differently. So there are some folks who in the last few decades, you know, they teach at these colleges and stuff. I'm going to say one name, Runoko Rashidi. No disrespect. But by the way, let me go ahead and say a name, Runoko Rashidi. Oh yeah, by the way, didn't he have something negative to say about FBA before he passed? The 720 degrees of analysis you receive absolutely nowhere else. By the way, does my memory not serve me? Or by the way, another black academic, another black academic with a pedigree for giving tours of Africa. Oh, you all thought I was just making that up. Jason, where's your invoices? Dude, you don't want to try me. You don't want to try that. You don't want to try that, buddy. Yeah, if somebody could have knocked me off, they'd have done it a while ago. Yeah. But, yeah, folks, are you starting to pick up a pattern? This was a thing among them cats. This was their thing. So for those of you who may be millennials or Gen Z, like I say, a lot of you may not be aware that this goes back decades, man. These guys did globetrotting. A lot of them were in the military and stuff like that. And after Vietnam, during Vietnam and after Vietnam in particular, they made detours into Africa and South America. And they developed a pedigree as a result. So when they got back to the States, they were real good about wanting to take folk on tours. And that became a business for a lot of them. And by the way, I'm not knocking that. I think that's cool. I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. However, if you start to put your business model and your business interests ahead of our interests, or if your business interests are competing, God forbid, conflicting with our personal interests, now this is where we got to put on the brakes. We got to put the brakes on here. And I'm not casting aspersions. I'm just saying that, by the way, I couldn't help but notice that I suspect a factor in here is that certain folks have certain interests. Some of them are economic. And that may play a role. That may play a role in why they would want all of us to be very gung-ho. They would want us to be very gung-ho about going back and forth over there, up to and including telling us that we should just disregard or dismiss any negative experiences that we have. Why, you had bad experiences in Queens and Manhattan. So that gives Ghana and Kenya the right to do that too. So you see what happens. They'll start telling you that you just need to ignore everything. Just keep doing what you're doing no matter what occurs. And I'm just saying, is that rational? Please tell me where that's rational. Because here's the thing. If you have bad experiences in Manhattan and equally bad experiences in Queens, you might need to move out of both. Damn! Hey, folks, if you're having the same bad experiences in Manhattan and the same bad experiences in Queens on a regular, consistent basis, you're consistently having bad experiences, not a one-off. If you're consistently having bad experiences, yeah, that might be letting them know, that might be the world letting you know you need to be somewhere else. You might want to be somewhere else. as opposed to knocking your head into the same wall. This is a shock to the system. It's a shock to the system to a lot of these older folk who thought that, and I'm going in a different direction here. We might as well go ahead and make this a clean sweep tonight. A lot of y'all are going to be unhappy with me when I get done saying this, but a lot of these older cats, because this is a generational thing, a lot of the civil rights generation baby boomer cats, they couldn't make any waves in the broadcast media. And when the internet thing came along, they were too old and out of the loop, so they couldn't make nothing move. And then some younger dudes came along and they knew how to move on these internet streets, and they knew how to move around, and they knew how to operate. They knew how to build a following, and they were willing to stick with it long enough to do that. And then we created our own new media. And as a gesture of homage, we reached back through the crates and said, hey, some of these other dudes are kind of thorough about this. Don't take our word for it. Listen to them. But I gotta tell you, and I've said this for years and years now, and I am not speaking on anybody else's behalf other than my own, so do not project this on anybody else. This is just me speaking, and I'm just giving you my position right now. And I will go so far as to say, and I'm not even going to direct this at anybody specifically. I just want to express this. I am not saying that I am going to specifically aim this at anybody or anybody I've been talking about previously here tonight, but I do want to express this as a headliner in the new black media. I have not gone public about it, but I think you all understand. These older cats, some of them appear in your documentary films. Some of them have been at your live events. Some of them you've met personally. I'm going to just leave it there. A lot of them are kind of jealous because they see that we were able to amass an audience, and they weren't really able to do that when they were our age or younger. They weren't really able to get folks to listen to them or get an audience or aggregate a following. They couldn't do that. They were running around New York. They were running around LA. They were running around DC. But let's just keep it real. We saw Dr. John Henry Clark in some old VHS tapes that have been uploaded to YouTube. But we weren't listening to him when we were in high school. We found him later. So we learned how to build an audience, but they didn't really have that. Now, of course, this is broadcast media and whatnot, but my point is when the internet kicked off, they didn't convert over to that either. When the internet became a thing, they didn't convert over to that either. So you see, a lot of them, when they saw that we had the eyes and the ears of the people, let's just keep it real, they saw that, and when they came to us and realized that we could get numbers that they couldn't get, so they were polite, but I'm telling you all from personal experience, and I'm gonna leave it there. Y'all can read between the lines. You know me. If I don't say nothing, I'm trying to say something. And I think some of y'all know names. You ain't got to name names, but all I'm going to say is, by the way, if you ain't heard from people in a minute, it isn't because we haven't been receptive. If you ain't heard from certain folk in a minute, it isn't because we switched up and we haven't been receptive. Some of the folks that we came and dug out the crates and things, I'm just going to tell you all, some of them were resentful. It became apparent after a minute that some of them were resentful. Some of them had little Napoleon complexes. They used to be on TV and then they can't be on TV anymore. And they became resentful, especially if they start saying coon stuff. I will be polite, but I'm going to distance you. I'm not going to get off code. I'm going to give you one pass to get that cleaned up. If you double down on it, I'm sticking with the people. Whether you were in a film or not, I'm sticking with the people. And so I want you all to understand that there's been a number of folk here that they wasn't able to get it to pop, and they are resentful because they feel like, once again, this is ego. Dr. John Henry Clark said the ego starvation. They feel like they should be setting the tone, that they should be telling us what the agenda is going to be. Or, in the words of Nikki Barnes, you damn right I'm talking about Nikki Barnes.
And deal with it, nigga.
In the words of Nikki Barnes, they want to dictate policy. You see, they were never able to do that in their heyday. So now that we've got a platform and we've acquired an audience, and now they're in front of way more people than they've ever been, they finally are getting listened to. But now they're coming to us and saying that they want to dictate what the policy will be. Now, I just want you all to understand that's a major factor in what has happened and what has transpired. They feel like because they maybe wrote a book, or maybe they were on TV once upon a time, or maybe they were on a talk show way back in the day, or maybe they were at college or something. They've been waiting for that moment where they're going to lead. And in many of their cases, they have mistaken being an intellectual resource for us wanting them to lead us. Let me say that again. A lot of these cats from the older baby boomer civil rights generation, they have started to mistake us coming to them as an intellectual resource for being us wanting them to lead us. That we're the young children and we need them to give us the direction and give us the map and tell us where we're going to go and what the agenda will be. They're having a very difficult time accepting that we already know what the agenda is. We didn't come to you to find out what the agenda is or be told what it is. We already know. And what we are doing is showing people that you are an intellectual resource and it connects dots. And that's very important to have. But we did not come to you for leadership. We took a look at the last 5 decades. We want a clean break from the pathology that you all were on. So yes, we do want to connect the dots, but we are not looking for leadership. And a lot of these cats are resentful because they thought that we were going to sit up here and look to them to lead us. And when they realized that that wasn't what we were on, once they realized that that's not what we were on, then they start saying things like we're not showing the, quote, proper respect. You know, like Don Fanucci in The Godfather. What? Yeah, you Vito Corleone, you ain't showing proper respect. It's like that. It's like that. I mean, if I'm saying too much tonight, I guess y'all can just be offended or whatever, but I'm going to say it this one time and then I'll have to come back and check on this again. If you remember it, that's great. If you don't, okay, fine. But if y'all want to know what's kind of been happening behind the scenes over the last decade, I just want y'all to understand that there have been things, I myself have witnessed it. I myself have experienced it. People that you have respected, you read their work since you were in high school, and that did not change. But what did happen was they got in rooms that they previously were not able to get in. They had a career renaissance that they thought they were gone out to pasture, and we went to work to get them in the rooms that they weren't in before. And once they got there, it's just like they kind of mentally, emotionally kicked back to when they were in their prime, and now they want to dictate policy. And when we're saying, hey, we're the front line, we're the frontline soldiers. The battlefield has changed. The tactics have changed. We can't fight a modern war with obsolete tactics. And they're telling us, no, go get back in your, go ahead and get your M1 carbine and get your carbine rifle and your pipe bombs. Go ahead and get your green camouflage fatigues. We got to get ready for the jungle. But sir, we're fighting in the desert now. I said get your green jungle fatigues. A battlefield's a battlefield. The enemy is the enemy, and a battlefield's a battlefield. And we're the frontline soldiers saying, hey, that's not where we at. That is not where we are. That's not disrespect. But what I'm telling you all is that a lot of these cats, they didn't have the opportunity to lead anything of any significance. And maybe that was a tragedy. Maybe it wasn't. But what I will say is that if you all don't know, I know that these things are happening, and I know it's not just me, but I'm not going to speak for anybody else. I'm not going to tell you all that. I'm not going to speak for anybody else or give out any information about anybody else. I will tell you it's not just me. I know this for an absolute fact. I have experienced it. It's happened to me, and I know I'm not the only one that has happened to. If anybody else wants to tell their story, they can do that. I am not going to put anybody else out there. They can tell their story if they want to. But I will tell you that, yeah, I mean, everybody, that's what's been going on. That's what's been going on. Some of these older dudes got in their feelings, and quite frankly, there's been a lot of ego, and they just felt like they really think that they built us. Like, if it weren't for them, then we couldn't have done this. And it's like, you don't understand. That's not the way that works. Certainly, we appreciate you participating in things like that. That's great. But that's not the way that works. As evidenced by the fact that it's like, hey, we can do this one way or the other. Well, that's not the way it works. And a lot of them, they want to use this and stuff, and so that they're finally in charge, and they're finally setting policy, and they're finally setting the direction. And when it became clear that we were not going to fall in line, and we were not going to do that, and that we had already discarded a bunch of obsolete, fallacious philosophies that they had picked up, but that forms the matrix and the core of everything that they believe, that became a problem. That became a problem, man. It became that. And so what has happened is there's some folks, some of them are tethers, some of them are immigrants, some of them outright foreigners, a couple white folk. What? And, you know, they see that among that particular group, that particular group doesn't get listened to very much. So y'all notice a lot of these old heads keep showing up on no-name podcasts. I mean, folk who got 300 and 400 subscribers and get 20 or 30 views. And the only way they get anything larger than that, I mean, they'd sell their mama into slavery, pardon the expression, if they could get 1,500 or 2,000 views. So they got to talk about the people who can get an audience every week. They got to talk about someone who actually can. And what I'm saying is that I think if you all think about this for a moment, I'm not going to say any names, but y'all get it. A lot of these cats, whether they've been in documentaries or not, They don't really pull numbers. And they show up on anybody's podcast and folk with 50 subscribers, and there they are. Well, if you want to know why maybe you ain't heard from them in a while over here in the new black media, I'm just letting you all know once that ego thing gets started. And here's the thing. I'm just going to tell you all for myself. This is something that broke down, I would say 8 or 9 years ago at this point. It's 2025. So at this point, it would be closer to 8 to 9 years ago. Y'all haven't heard anything from me. I haven't gone public. I ain't put no names out there. I'm not trash talking anybody. Oh, and I damn sure could. Let me be very clear with y'all about that. Nigga, I got B-roll. I wouldn't have to talk about it. I could show it in 4K. You ain't seen me do that. Oh, believe me, y'all. Listen, I got B-roll. I've been rather charitable, but for the last 8, 9 years, if I wanted to blow up the spot, I ain't doing that. Okay, Jason, edit your film, put it out, keep it pushing. The people will eventually see. The people will eventually see. You just stay consistent. Yeah, it might be difficult to see folks out here doing things that are not, don't have integrity, but the people will eventually see. Because if you sit up here and go do that, you're giving folks the ability to make an internet beef, and then people are more interested in being entertained than actually acknowledging what's going on there. So, but yeah, folks, it's not new. It is not new. It isn't. And it's been going on for a minute. It's been going on for a minute. And me, myself, I'm just going to tell y'all, if you want me to say it, yeah, I cut ties with folks a long ways along the line. Yes, if you're thinking his name, or should I say their names, yes, you're right. You've been right for a while. If I don't talk about them, I don't mention them. If they tell you that they want to talk to me, and then you don't hear me say that I'm willing to talk to them, I'm just going to say this right now. To everybody listening here, I'm not going to say no names. I'm just going to say this to you. If you talk to anybody who you think I've talked to before, and you ask them, hey, would you be willing to talk to Jason again? If they say yes, and you don't get a yes from me, I'm telling you something. Now, that's as far as I'm going to go with it. If they're hanging out on Twitter or Instagram or on somebody's bull jive ass junkyard dog podcast or whatever, even if they were in one of my films, if you ask them, would you go on Jason's program, and they say yes, and then, or even if they don't say yes, but if you ask me and I don't tell you yes, I'm telling you something. It ain't just one person. Let me clarify this for the chat before you even start that. By the way, it ain't just one person. And it's not about being mean or salty or anything else like that. I'm just telling y'all, a bunch of these old cats, man, they've been waiting in the wings, whether it's closet narcissism or ego or whatever, man. And they saw that we had creativity. We had creativity and the ability to market these things in a manner they could never have imagined. And as a result, they started telling themselves that this was them. And I didn't have a problem with it. I'm just like, okay, you know what? Hey, enjoy that, man. Go ahead and kick it and enjoy that. I'm not basing on nothing. That doesn't bother me. Yeah, but then they didn't want to stop there. And so when we made it crystal clear that this is the agenda, this is what we're about, This is what we own. We are not trying to recreate the great big puff afro era of the 70s. You don't see anybody here wearing a dashiki. What? In case you didn't notice, you don't see anybody over here wearing a dashiki. Furthermore, I don't know if you ever saw that. But by the way, in case they didn't notice, apparently they didn't. In case y'all older cats never noticed, man, you ain't seen a bunch of dashiki wearing people over here, man. And you damn sure don't see them today. That sounds like the white folk talking about us back in the 70s. Man, ain't nobody rocking that. You don't see the dashikis. You don't see the big red, black, and green medallions. You don't see any of that. And what we're saying is that this is not just one generation, man. This is every generation after the civil rights generation, Gen X forward. This is all of them. There has been a clean break. And what you need to do is talk to us about why there has been a clean break. But you're not going to be able to do that to try to recruit us back to going backwards. Because that's not where we're trying to go. If that got results, we'd be trying to go there. That's not what we're trying to do. We have a whole different outlook now. It's all about empowerment. We got a whole different outlook, and it's not based on how do we recreate the 60s and the 70s. We're not trying to figure our ideology out. We already know what it is. And you have an opportunity to be a part of that. If you choose not to be, that's up to you too. But shaming tactics, hazing tactics, man, that ain't gonna make it. That's not gonna change the situation. You see, if we were looking, no disrespect, but this is the part you gotta understand. If we were looking for your approval, then maybe that would work. If there was something that we wanted from you in that manner, well, maybe that would work. If we were looking for your approval, maybe that would work. We're not looking for that approval. We're not. And we set the tone now, and we set the agenda, and we set the policy. And I'm not saying that from an egotistical standpoint. I'm saying that from a tactical standpoint. Reparations was just a slogan. It wasn't even a bumper sticker for them old niggas. We were the ones who made it viable. Black empowerment being defined as strictly, primarily economic. Malcolm X banged on it, but no disrespect, the civil rights generation and the black academic generation ignored Malcolm. They never centered black empowerment as measured in economics. They never did that. They said education. They said spirituality. They said politics. They said wearing red, black, and green. They never said it ain't black empowerment if you can't measure it economically. If you cannot measure it economically, then it is not black empowerment. Full stop. They never did that. Never. We were the ones starting in Gen X. We were the ones who centered it on economics, and that's the foundation, and ain't nothing else gonna supersede it. You're not going to tell us that we're going to measure it in being spiritually Afrocentrically groovy. That does not determine or define if we are empowered. A bunch of broke Africans who are very, very centered in their identity are not empowered. People who are centered in their identity and as proven by their economic base. Now they are empowered. And all that other stuff you're talking about, now that can actually happen. That's the difference. And that's frightening to a lot of folks who are trying to sell us on the idea that there's some consolation prize. And that's why we rejected all of that. So thanks for the memories. Thanks for the history lesson. Thanks for some of the insights. We'll take it from here. By the way, and that's what's supposed to happen. Oh yeah, one more thing. To all the old cats, to all the old senior citizen grifters, to all the folks still trying to milk the internet for an extra $1 because you need it. You're supposed to pass the damn baton. You're not going to sit on the throne the rest of your life and dictate from what you remember back in the 50s or 60s. You're supposed to pass the baton, and you're not supposed to be begrudging about it either. And of course, that's a difficult thing for any generation, for them to hand it off to the next. But the next generation has insights and understanding that you don't have. You're supposed to hand that off. You don't get some lifetime appointment or some lifetime assignment. We're supposed to take over. We are supposed to assume leadership. We're supposed to assume the lead. That's what we're supposed to do. You see, I need you all to understand something. Even death serves a function. As painful and difficult as that may be, it serves a function. You know why? Because you may have a bunch of assumptions, but you don't know if those assumptions are true. And you'll become emotionally attached to your assumptions. It's all you know. It forms your identity. But when you have a new generation, they start over with a clean slate. Maybe they will repeat everything you're doing. Maybe they won't. Because you see, they're looking at it with fresh eyes. They are not emotionally attached to it the way that you are. Their pride and their ego is not attached to it the way yours might be. So new people, a new generation can look at these things with fresh eyes, and maybe they spot mistakes that you're too prideful to admit was a mistake. You might be a little too prideful and a little too egotistical, and it might hurt your ego too much to admit, and this actually didn't work. This actually wasn't very effective, but we wish it was, and we spent so much time trying to make it work. That new generation that comes up, they didn't spend all that time trying to make it work. So you see, when they encounter it, they can immediately tell you whether or not this is effective or not, and they don't have, you've been trying it for 50 years. They're not attached to that 50 years of investment that you put into an obsolete, futile effort. Your children did not put 50 years into a futile effort. So when they see futility, they're going to stop after 5 minutes, not 5 decades. And you'll look at that and be like, but wait a minute, you're leaving that behind. We put so much into it. And it's like, Grandpa, it was a mistake. There's nothing there. I know you need there to be something there because you put so much time into it, but there was nothing there. There was nothing there. What do you do? Folks, what do you do when you have an old lover who has stabbed you in the back? You have loved that person. You have given them your heart and your soul. You have committed everything to them. You are fully and completely 100% devoted to them. And one day you catch them in bed with another person. One day you see that they cleaned out your bank account. One day you see that they picked up a butcher knife and are coming at you. What do you do? You see, if you're ignoring the butcher knife, if you're ignoring the stealing of your money, the bank account, if you're ignoring the person that they're in bed sweating with, well, then now you're going to start talking about forgive. Because you see, you're so invested in them. And even if you have to take this hideous degradation, well, you value that because this is all I know. I need them. So you start ignoring the obvious reality that this person either has changed or that they were never who you thought they were. That's going to shatter your world. That's going to shatter your world. But you have to be willing to face that. That this person, this place, these people that you were so invested in, that they are not who you've been telling yourself they were because it comforts you. Now that you're willing, have the courage to accept that, now you can make some adjustments. But telling everybody to close their eyes and turn off their brains, that is not a strategy. Well, it's not a strategy for winning anything. Those are my thoughts on what I've seen, what I've heard. You all are now up to speed on this program here about certain other things you may have seen or heard over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I didn't go to YouTube about it. By the way, one more thing, I didn't go to YouTube about it. If I got your number and I didn't call you, I ain't got nothing else to say to you. And I don't really have anything else to say about you. Let me just say that. If I got your number and you got mine, if you got an issue with me and you did not call me, don't ever worry about doing that again. I don't do the internet thing. So if you got my number and you did not call me, I'm like, okay, if you go to the internet, I don't have anything else to say to you. And as you all have seen, you can't name a single person that's been me. I don't have any of them folk right there. It's like, well, he wasn't right about that. If I got your phone number, if I got your phone number, if there is an issue, I'll call you. If I didn't call you, I ain't got nothing to say. And I live that. Too bad some of these other folks don't, but hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. Not talking about anybody specifically in particular, but by the way, it is what it is. However, you might disagree. There are some of you who have, so we will give you an opportunity to go ahead and call in here. Maybe I should stop the program and restart it. I don't know. Maybe I should stop the program and restart it, because if I open up the lines here, I think folks may have a lot to say, and I don't know if I want a 5 or 6 hour broadcast, to be totally honest, but maybe I need to restart it as opposed to let it keep going. But you all might disagree. You might have something else in mind. So we're going to go ahead and open up the Zoom lines for you here. We're going to go ahead and open up the Zoom lines for you here, and we're going to give you all an opportunity to go ahead and punch in. If you've been instructed by me or my mods to call in, that is not just a nifty little suggestion. That is an order. And if you don't, that works out even better, because you've gone ahead and debunked yourself for me, which is always shows people far more than I could ever say. In the meantime here, I want to thank everyone, and I do mean everybody who has contributed to a nice program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Shout out here to my man, Mr. Richburg. Thank you very much, sir, for your support tonight. We appreciate that. To my man, the code leads, as always. When we say FBA, the whole world knows what we're talking about. We had to delineate. Hey, it's got to be what it's got to be. Shout out to Logical for Emotion, giving out some memberships here. Maddie Love and some other folks there in the chat room. We appreciate that. Mika, thank you very much for your support here as well. Shin Terrell has been a little bit upset tonight. I don't blame you. YGLTB1, thank you very much for your support as well. Immigrant B1, Let's hear from folks who are on code with us here, Raider King 6 and everybody else here who's contributed to tonight's program. We're going to take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When I come back, we're going to go ahead and take your calls and more. This is the Black Channel.
True masculinity isn't about power, it's about presence. Confidence that's natural, grounded, and real. Begin your ritual with Honey Beauty's Main Magic Beard Wash and Conditioner, infused with the goodness of mangoes and organic botanicals to cleanse deeply, soften, and revive your beard. Follow with Honey Beauty's Main Magic Beard Oil, a powerful blend of natural oils that nourish, strengthen, and add a smooth, confident shine. Complete the look with Honey Beauty's Main Magic Beard and Body Butter. Pure organic hydration that keeps your skin and beard soft, healthy, and refined.
Be the teacher, knowledge on the block. Got the kids learning, minds open like a lock. Books and skills from the east to the west. Bringing education, yeah, we're simply the best. Classes on fire, brains burning with desire. Innovation driving like a tire through the mire. Math, science, history, we got the whole range. Kids hitting new heights, teachers making a change. Used to be the teacher, stacking up the grades. Future bright shining, no need for no shades. Got the youth thriving, moving up the ladder. Smart and sharp, brains growing fatter. Lessons so lit, yeah, they stay in a blaze. Every mind sharp like a sword in the haze. Mr. B in the house breaking knowledge chains. Education kingpin, we repping the gains. Mr. B the teacher.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And we've been having a teaching moment here tonight. As always, we've been having a teaching moment here tonight. And we're going to go ahead and open up the Zoom here for you. By the way, once again, if you've been instructed by my mods to go ahead and call up, you thought you were going to make points in the chat room. But by the way, when it replays, folks will see, by the way, you didn't even defend it. Oh boy, you must have been lying. Of course. Of course. Let me go ahead and sit here. I thought this was pinned up there. Let me go ahead and do that again. All right. There you go. All right. The link to the Zoom is pinned to the top of the chat room. I thought I had it pinned up there. I guess I didn't. Well, it's there now. So let's go ahead and get everybody logged in here. All right. Let me go ahead and see. We got Superpower Media up here on the Zoom for me here. So let me go ahead and see if I can get Superpower up here. All right. Superpower Media, what's on your mind?
Appreciate you bringing this information to us tonight, Jason. This has just been great. And it's sad at the same time, man. I know you don't want to say it, but I got to say it, Jason. You got to watch out for these old niggas. And the reason I say that, man, we all have drunk uncles and old drunk uncles and people in our families that talk crazy too. And the reason why this is so dangerous, man, I always say, I look at it like this. He's talking just like Jim Jones. And if anybody don't know about Jim Jones, not the rapper, but the Jim Jones that shipped everybody to the Guyana and made them drink the juice, because that's exactly what he's trying to do. When you telling people to go to Africa, man, and not giving them the whole truth and nothing but the truth, that's deceptive at on a dangerous level. Because when I've traveled outside the country, man, And a lot of these places are dangerous. And I come back and I tell my family members, hey, if you go over there, don't do this and don't go there, because it's third world countries over here, man, that you go to and you look and you see, wow, this ain't it. And I've never been to Africa, but I know that is not what he's saying at all. Put out what he's trying to say it is. You can be taking people into a burning house and not telling them. That's crazy, and that's dangerous, just because you're trying to make a buck off of somebody, and that's all it is. And the jealousy, man. I mean, and I'm pretty sure Tariq Nasheed, he's a smart guy, and he will address this at some point, or he might not. But man, this is all kind of crazy, Jason.
Well, like I say, if you can have your perspective on these places, you can have your perspective on what we're doing. But at this point right here, if you can't define who we are, I think a lot of these folks are having difficulty trying to having to define us outside of Africa. I think that's the real issue right there, is when they're faced with that right there, they kind of just go tilt. And even though the problem is, it's just like with our Americanness. But at least we got a birth certificate and a passport and something that actually codifies us here. But it's like being a biracial person. The Pan-Africanists are like biracials. They're claiming that they got, some other identity, but you can't get them to honor it. That's the problem. You can't talk to me about Pan-Africanism if you tell me just ignore the fact that your Africanness is not honored in Africa. There's where the issue comes from. I'm just talking about not just in Africa, but the folk who are there. They want to make it very clear. Oh, no. You ain't got no African credentials. And I'm not going to deal with symbolic things either. Don't tell me I'm super groovy. If I don't have African credentials and African authority, I'm not going to make believe that I do. When I do get those things, then I will make another adjustment. When the material facts on the ground change, I will adjust. Just like I adjusted the last time that the material facts on the ground altered. When they altered before, I changed. If they alter again, I will change again. What I will not do is make believe and fantasize that the situation is something other than what it is so that it comforts other people. How about we accept the reality for what it is, and then you can change it, as opposed to ain't nothing wrong, just make believe. I'll let you have the last word.
And the most disrespectful thing he said was, we don't know our history. And this is I'm going to say this is dashiki babble. You know how you had the guys coming out of prison with the prison babble? This is dashiki babble, man. And we know our history better than anybody. Africans don't even know their own history. We know their history better than they do. And for him to say that in front of this, look at the grin that guy got on his face, man. Like, that's just classic Taylor stare. And for him to be this old, man, he's not dumb. Professor Small is not dumb, so I don't want nobody to get this misconstrued. He's playing some type of game, man. That these old niggas from the civil rights generation, man. We had, like I said, we had family members, man. I can talk about the things I went through with my parents, man. It would I cry sometimes because of what they did. But yeah, man, it's crazy. So be one, y'all. The code is the leader, and that's what we follow. Be one, Jason.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight here. Let me see if I can get Huey up here on Zoom for me right quick. Let me see if we can get Huey up here on Zoom. Okay, Huey, what's on your mind?
Hey, Jason, wonderful broadcast as always. Thank you very much for keeping it professional in regard to this topic. I've been listening to you and Tariq for a while. I've been watching all your documentaries. There are some things where I will agree with certain people as long as it's a educational and it's an empowerment thing. But with Professor Small's, there's a lot of things I didn't agree with that whole statement that he said. other than that, like the whole Pan-African thing, it has not been reciprocated the same thing. We've been financially helping other people to our detriment, and these guys come over here and they disrespect, us as the freedmen that help lay the foundation for them. And when we try to go out and build stuff, we get rejected for it.
Well, brother,
So
here's the
like,
thing. Here's the thing. They don't just disrespect us. They openly undermine us. Now, there's a difference between somebody talking to you some way you don't like, or they're not as polite, or they're not as engaging as they could be, versus someone who is actively working against you. Candace Owens did not just disrespect us. She was actively working against us. Actively targeting us. She was walking in the platoon with the white supremacists, actively targeting us. That is disrespectful, yeah, but that's something other than disrespect too. Now you've taken it to, we're here to undermine you. At that point right there, bro, you got to make changes. You got to. Period. I'll let you have the last word.
Correct. And like I said, I agree with you. Like I said, like I love Professor Kaba. I got all the wisdom and knowledge from him. Same thing with Professor Small. But at this moment, like I have to we as Black Americans, as us as freedmen, we have to make drastic changes because the things that we were doing has not been beneficial for us. Like, for example, remember when Michael B. Jordan was trying to do some type of, I don't know if it was a cologne or alcohol in, like, I think the Caribbeans. And then you had, I think it was Cardi B trying to, like, win against him and say, no, that's Caribbean culture. That's not your culture. And it's the same thing when we do stuff now for ourselves, and everybody has to be a part of it. But when it's time for us to have that fair exchange, it's always going to be, no, we can't do this. It's part of our culture. You're not part of our culture. But then when it's time for us to do the same thing, it's all of a sudden we're being divisive and we're being xenophobic.
Yeah, I mean, this selective Pan-Africanism, where we don't want unity when it's to your benefit. And then when you think you can one up on us, all of a sudden ain't no unity. So it's just like, you know what? If it's not unity 24/7, then it needs to just be none at all. And we cool with that. We'll work on unity over here. Yeah. Thank you very much. Give us a call tonight. Let me see if I can get Tyron up here on Zoom for me right quick. Let me see if I can get Tyron here. At least we'll try to get him here. I'll give Tyron a couple of moments. If he's not there, then we're going to go ahead and move on. By the way, if you get on Zoom, make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned on. Nobody else is going to see you, just me. All right, there you go, Tyron. What's on your mind?
My name's Tyron Leung. I'm from Charlotte, North Carolina. You hit the nail on the head with this one because these old dogs, they got to be put out to pasture. Like, for one, this guy is a grifter. I've heard him say that he's an American Indian in one point. Then he grifts on to being a hotep in another. I don't see any beneficiary with these cats pushing this Pan-Africanism anymore because, for one, I've noticed a pattern with them throwing this agent term around, and a lot of the agents come from the Pan-African side of things. And I'm not going to name drop anybody within the Pan-African spectrum because that'll be agent talk. And that'll be going against the family. But if we're going to put people out there, historically, that Pan-Africanism stuff was orchestrated under the system of white supremacy trying to get rid of us out of the Americas because they saw that Indianness was a threat and that Black Americans already had indigenous bloodlines here, and they wanted to get rid of that. And so they wanted to push people to move to Liberia and Sierra Leone. And many of our ancestors, like Frederick Douglass, saw through that scheme and said, don't go for that. We have a fight on our hands here. Same with Booker T. Washington and everybody else. The problem with this Pan-Africanism stuff is we haven't been given any reciprocal help from Africans themselves because nobody in the continent of Africa is actually practicing Pan-Africanism. They all have their little enclaves, and when our people go over there to help them out, they don't like our gentrification. They rather go with colonial powers, and it's always been like that since they sold some of our ancestors over here.
Exactly. What they want us to do is to drop our economics over there to economically benefit them, but they don't. They have made it very clear they do not want anything mutual in that regard. So once again, we become somebody's economic market, and we become somebody's economic, for economic exploitation, but we're not here to have control of anything. When they come among us, we haven't thrown up a single roadblock in their way to prevent them from having control of anything. When we show up, all of a sudden, you can't control nothing. So that's a game that's been played, and they've been playing us for suckers. All we're saying is, hey, that might have worked in these previous generations. We're not going for it anymore. That's all we're saying. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me see if I can get, let me see here. Anna, let me go ahead and see if we can get Anna up here on Zoom for me right quick. We'll see if Anna's been paying attention or not. There you go, Anna. All right, what's on your mind? Oh, this newfangled technology has her confounded.
Oh, yes, I am. Do you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I hear you. Turn off your speakers.
Okay. All right, I was just going to ask you a question because earlier you mentioned Frank Lucas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I've been wanting to ask this question to somebody for a long time because Frank Lucas is from my from my county. And I'm in South Carolina right now.
Okay, thank you. There you go.
But he's from Lenoir County. That's where all my family is from. And my mother went to his funeral. I was like, good Lord. My mother, she plays funeral services all the time. She plays piano for all the churches, and that's what she does. And I'm like, I don't understand where to jump. I don't understand the plug. I'm like, because in Lenoir County, we don't have no drug problems. So I'm like, I get in trouble for smoking a cigarette around my mother. It's like, so I don't understand. I'm like,
What exactly is it you don't understand? Or did you have a question for me?
Well, I don't understand. It's like, because you mentioned it's like you had the foreign thing with Frank Lucas, because of Frank Lucas didn't come back to Lenoir County until he was dead.
Okay. Well, what I'm referring to is that over in Asia is where he got the plug for the drugs. Okay. So he was very industrious in that regard. But if Frank Lucas hadn't, if you don't have, if it weren't for, being in the military or whatever, they wouldn't have seen it. So I'm just saying there's a lot of cats out there who had an opportunity to see things and go places, and they had buddies. Okay. She's going to need to Google it or watch the movie American Gangster. That might be
watch the movie American Gangster.
Okay.
Before I found out he was from.
Okay. That might clear up a lot for you there in that regard. But the bottom line is a lot of cats in that era, they used that globe trotting for a different thing. These other folks might have had one idea about what they gonna do. These brothers had a whole different way of using that traveling thing. So it's just like, okay, I went on a tour of duty, but I picked up something new while I was over there. And basically that's what you're looking at.
But okay, so what I was like calling and asking about was because I was a little confused because Lenoir County is very conservative.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was real conservative for Frank Lucas. It was real conservative for Frank Lucas because they killed his cousin, shoved a shotgun in his mouth and blew his head off. So that's what sent Frank down the road he was on in the first place. But the bottom line is no.
Yeah, I heard about that.
He made his way to New York because that's where the money was going to be. A bunch of black folk, they left the South and they went to New York because that's where the money was. And so that's how they capitalized on that. So, but the bottom line though is that the bottom line is that it's very unlikely that they had the opportunity to go see places overseas. And during that Vietnam era and whatnot, they saw a lot of Asia. After the Vietnam era, a lot of these cats decided, hey, we saw Vietnam, and some of them took detours into Africa and South America. So I bring up Frank to remind you all that there was a lot of fellows who took detours in Asia. When they had the opportunity to be overseas, they're like, I'm going to do a whole lot more than just look around barracks. So that's what I'm letting you know. Because remember, back then you had the draft and stuff like that. But I'm just letting you, as a female, you might not know about that, but they had the draft. So I'm just saying.
I was born in Italy.
When these guys had the opportunity to look at things overseas, they didn't just go where they were told to go. Some of them went exploring other places and they found out other things. So that's what Frank found out. But there are other folks, they got into Afrocentrism and they started exploring other continents and other places since they got used to it. They were already used to doing it. The military had them doing it, so they just went off on their own and explored some other places, which is good. That's cool. That's great. I just want you to understand where it came from. All right, thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Let me see if we can get Blanco up here on Zoom for me right quick. Let me go ahead and get Blanco up on Zoom for me right quick. Blanco might have fallen asleep over there. I'll give you a few moments here, Blanco, then we're going to have to go. I need everybody to make sure they're awake tonight. All right, Blanco, what's on your mind?
Jason, great broadcast tonight, same as yesterday. But what's crazy is my question, since you brought up the old civil rights generation, is it possible that the CIA, on purpose, obviously, that they created the idea that if you don't become a black celebrity, if you don't become this person that we put inside history books, you're not part of the group or whatever. As you were saying that, like, as you pass the baton, you can sense a little bit of jealousy from the old generation, like they didn't quote unquote make it. But what is making it if the code is the leader? Are you trying to just going down in history as Malcolm X? Because then you're going to get your Joy Ann Reeds, you're going to get your Don Lemons, you're going to get people, your Tethers and whatnot, that they get it, but they still serve the interest of imperialism. And
yeah, I mean, you're talking about validation. And yeah, I mean, a lot of them are very much still interested in being validated. They want to be validated by the group. They would like to be validated by society. But yes, I mean, there's a bunch of them who would very much like Dr. John Henry Clarke talk about when you talk about ego starvation. That's what he was referring to. Yes, they very much wanted that validation. And in many cases, look, it was wrongfully denied to a lot of them. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing was a dynamo. I mean, I don't just quote people because they're black. I don't quote people because it's convenient. I quote them because I consider it to be profound. And when she sat there on the Phil Donahue talk show and had explained exactly what it was, that white people are afraid of genetic annihilation, and then she said that we in the mental health field need to deal with that like we do every other mental health issue. For example, people don't like the idea of dying. A lot of folk have a lot of issue about that too, understandably so. Okay, how do we deal with that? Do we ignore it? Do we give them pills for it? Or do we treat this? Do we talk to them and counsel them through this? And if white people are afraid of not personal annihilation, but genetic annihilation, that needs to be dealt the same way you would with a person who's afraid of dying. We need to deal with that the same way. And what she was saying is that's not happening. They're being told, well, we can just practice barbarism and white supremacy and annihilation and inhumanity. That's how you deal with it. And when she said that right there, I'm like, she explained it all right there. There's no way in the hell you heard that and it didn't make sense. Everything she said made perfect sense. And the white audience knows it too. And that woman right there, the problem is, yes, ma'am, you are brilliant. You're just brilliant about deconstructing white supremacy. So no book deal for you. No talk show circuit deals for you. Oprah Winfrey is not returning your phone calls. Oprah Winfrey is talking to everybody else except you. If Dr. Francis Cress Welsing was on Phil Donahue, damn it, Oprah Winfrey knew about her too. And yeah, keep that old nigga off of here. We ain't dealing with her. So in that regard, yes, they were definitely not given their due. They were not given justice in that regard. Absolutely. But there are also a number of folks, either rightly or wrongly, they got the same treatment, and they've really been chomping at the bit for the scales of justice to even that out, and that they get that same level of validation and relevance. And that's going to be a tough hill to climb for a lot of them, quite frankly. It's going to be a tough hill to climb. I'll let you have the last word.
It's just interesting that we see a whole generation of people that are more mad that they're not being called to, the podcast circuits and, different interviews and whatnot, versus how happy people are seeing what the progress, and there's always more progress to be made, but they can, if they're not invited to the party, if their name is not on the marquee, then they don't know what they're doing. Well, you gave a good head start, and then that's what a marathon is. That's what a relay race is. As you were saying, just keep killing it.
Thank you very much for giving us a call now. We appreciate that. Let me see if we can get Reggie. Let me see if we can get Reggie up here on Zoom. Reggie. Let me see if we can get Reggie. I'll give Reggie a couple of moments here. Some of the folks may have walked away from their phones. I need y'all to make sure you're okay. All right, Reggie, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, sir? Good to speak with you. My name is Brother Reggie. Of course, if you don't know, I am a former student of Professor Smalls, Dr. Clark, Dr. Jeffries, Dr. Joseph Benjo Cannon. I was educated in City College in New York, so I'm very aware of what you're saying and what they're saying. My statement is, first of all, generally, right, what we all have to work together. I know that you're upset with Professor Small for taking that clip of what he said about the FBAs. But can I be really clear? The last FBA, Foundational Black American, died 80 years ago. That's the last one. Everybody else is a descendant of the Foundational Black Americans. I hope that we can agree. One of the issues is this. There's about when we look at the populations, there's about 195.
Okay, I don't see why that would be relevant. That's kind of playing semantics, but okay.
Okay, that's fine. Well, thank you. Bear with me. There's 195 to 200 million white people in the United States. There's 48 million Black Americans in the United States. But the problem is now there's 65 million Hispanics, and that particular group is eating our food, right? They are much more united, much more beneficially to each other economically. There's 21 to 22 million Asians, right? The amount of African immigrants is 2.5 to 3 million. And you're right, maybe some of them have big mouths. And then with Caribbeans, there are 10 to 12
Okay,
million.
brother, what's your point?
Okay.
I got a lot of folk on Zoom here, so can we get to the point?
Yeah, but I think I'm the one that you want because I'm actually a student of them, right? And I've worked with them. So with my whole point of it is that what is our good brother Jason, what is our plan? I mean, in law, right? The
plan is first of all to be on code. You cannot be on code unless you A, know what you're talking about, and B, disseminate it to everybody else so that you can get on code as a group. Being on code as an individual is not a movement, and you can't change societies. Well, an individual can have an effect on society, but a group can definitely change one. So first of all, the code has to be the leader, and the code is what sets the agenda, and that's the first thing you're going to do. The second thing is that once you have that together, maybe you'll do it as a small group, maybe you'll do it larger, but you can't get anything done if you all don't even know what you're trying to accomplish. If you are claiming to yourself that you got allies that you don't really have, if you're telling yourself you can count on folk you can't really count on, either from inside or from outside, then you are going to repeat the same futility that previous generations have done. So we are starting there.
Okay, great. So with code, let's just deal with code real quick. And first of all, there's code, but then there's law. What's holding us back is law. When we go to in 2001, I testified in a reparations conference and
Okay. Yeah. Caller, let me go ahead and get Morpheus up here on Zoom for me here right quick. Morpheus, what's on your mind?
How you doing, Jason? Great broadcast. First thing I want to shout out Claude Anderson. At least he's one of the elders that's not on some BS, As a matter of fact, he's been talking about this way before anybody else, way back when, And unfortunately, it took this long for most of us to understand what he was talking about. You know what I mean? And
well, I mean, look, the issue is that the old niggas from the civil rights generation, damn right I said it, they didn't listen to Claude Anderson. Our generation didn't just pick up Powernomics and say, oh, that was some groovy Afrocentric stuff to read. We took it to heart. That's the difference. This is why we don't listen to the elders. They had Malcolm X walking among them, and look how they talked to Malcolm. The fact of the matter is, simply put, they don't want to have to admit this because this would be admitting their sins. They didn't take Malcolm to heart, and they lived with him. and they didn't take him to heart. We did. The children did. Malcolm's siblings and peers didn't. The next generation took him to heart, took Farrakhan to heart, took Dr. Claude Anderson to heart, took Dr. John Henrik Clarke to heart, because their own generation didn't. And that's just the truth. So if we took it to heart and we actually picked it up and ran with it, okay, then get out the way and let us run. I'll let you have the last word.
Big facts, big facts. So, like you said, it would be self-evident these people are here to help. We got to understand that some of these people, it's not all Africans, because there's Africans that gave us the game to let us know that, hey, our people are like this. When you're not looking around, they say this about you. They say this about you. You know what I'm saying? But at this point, I feel like we got to treat them like we treat white people. Like not all white people are bad, but I still treat them with gloves. You know what I'm saying? And just one last thing. You said, what is the white equivalent to Akata over there in Africa? You know what it is? It's God. That's what they treat them. That's what they call them.
Well, that doesn't sound like much of a slur. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. I believe you. That just doesn't sound like much of a slur there. So, yeah, that could be a thing. Okay, let me go ahead and get back over here on Zoom right quick. Richard, didn't you call in last night, sir?
Hello, how are you today?
Okay, sir. Didn't I speak to you last night?
Can you hear me? Am I turned up loud enough?
Okay, dude, I've asked you that twice now. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Willie up here on Zoom for me right quick. Folks, let's keep it pushing here. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Willie up here right quick. Remember, one call per weekend, folks. Even if it's very, very enticing, just one call per weekend, please. Thank you. Willie James, and y'all know me. The real life Willie James called in. I need Willie James to make sure he has his camera and his microphone turned on. Willie James, I can give you 5 seconds for that. Yeah, it ain't Percy Earl tonight, it's Willie James. Okay, Willie James says that his video don't work, so Willie James cannot talk. All right, let's go ahead and see if we can get Xavier up here on Zoom for me right quick. Yeah, I was hoping we could talk to the real life Willie James for a change. Couldn't get Percy Earl, but Willie James called in. All right, Xavier, what's on your mind? Xavier, what is on your mind, sir?
Hello, how are you? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we hear you. What's on your mind, sir?
Okay, excellent. All right, now this is the thing that I wanted to bring in. First of all, excellent broadcast tonight. I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed that this happened and everything. But again, we're not surprised. We've had a history of traitors and all that. But the one thing I wanted to bring in tonight, you meant when Professor Small started bringing up the subject of Zbigniew Brzezinski. See, here's the thing that's so amazing. Zbigniew Brzezinski was the head of the CFR at the time, and he was the one that was directly in charge of giving Jesse Jackson his marching orders to push out that in 1998 that African American title. So Mika the Bigot Brzezinski's father, he's the one that created the term African American, and it was designed to do three things. Number one, it was designed to kill the Black Power movement permanently. Number two, it was a way to, what's the word I want to say? The way that Reagan gave amnesty to the illegals. It was a platform to give the Africans, the Tethers, and the Caribbeans to come over and replace us. It's same as crack. And number three, it was designed to, what's the word I want to say? Confuse. So, the biggest weapon that the white supremacists have is creating confusion among Black people. And that's it. That's all I got.
Well, here's the thing. You don't have power if it didn't come from you. Mm-hmm. And so a part of this is defining ourselves. This didn't come from Jesse Jackson. This didn't come from a political party, the usual suspects. This didn't come from them. This came from the grassroots. This came from the soil. And that's scary to a lot of folks from the previous generations, because they're used to, let's be honest, they're used to getting their marching orders and agenda from the top down. They're used to it being validated through the corporate media. They're used to Walter Cronkite or somebody on TV telling them, "Oh, this is a valid thing right here." It doesn't. It doesn't exist if white society doesn't say it, or if white society doesn't validate it. Then it doesn't exist. What we're doing is brand new to them. The idea that
And
we
that's
can
scary.
bring something into existence and it exists because this is our agenda, this is frightening to them. And they're still stuck on the old agenda that was handed to them by other people and has been empowered by the government. Yeah, because they're comfortable with it. The other thing is, we're not afraid to have uncomfortable conversations. Now, there's another thing. Their idea of unity is keeping the peace. Our idea of unity is making the peace. We're not here to keep it. We're here to make it. If there is an issue, we don't believe in decades and generations of dysfunction. A lot of these older folk have to admit to themselves they got used to generational dysfunction. Doing stupid stuff and passing on down and generation after generation. So for us, this idea that you step in immediately and start correcting it, this is new to them. They're not used to correcting their messes. They're used to making a mess and it just gets progressively worse. So when we sit up here and slam on the brakes, that's frighteningly new to them because they're used to just wallowing with it and trudging on and making it worse. So yeah, we're not afraid of having uncomfortable conversations because we're like, okay, I would rather have an uncomfortable conversation and have silence than to sit up here and pretend that the situation's okay and avoid an uncomfortable conversation and have a damn uncomfortable life. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, here's the thing, we create, not only were we the generation, because they co-opted our name, we're the generation that brought back Malcolm X. That's why they call us Gen X. Remember when the Spike Lee movie came out and we were wearing our X hats and everything, then it's like, oh, okay, we got to do that. We're Generation X. I'm like, no, you're not. Black America, foundational Black America is Generation X. We're the ones that brought in hip hop as well. Plus that, we're also the generation that brought in, again, we're old heads now, but we're also the generation that brought in foundational Black America. That's also from Gen X. One thing we're never going to do is we're not going to leave our messes for the next generation to clean up. We going to handle this.
Well, brother, you understand something here. We're the generation that always had the uncomfortable conversations. But this is not new. Back it on up to the 80s, the old heads were scared of rap music. I was there, you were there. The old heads were there. They wasn't sitting there stomping to it. They were still doing the Soul Train thing. And sure, the disco stuff, that's cool and everything, but we took a harder edge.
Ain't even music. Turn that noise off.
Well, the thing is the attitude of it. We took a harder edge. Peace to Maurice White and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Maximum respect. I love all that stuff there, but I remind you all about their song, System of Survival. They were speaking in metaphors. The human race is running over me. I'm working 9 to 5 just trying to make a living. They spoke in metaphors. We didn't speak in metaphors. We spoke in straight sentences. When you got the message and F the police, we spoke straight out. We dropped the metaphors. We dropped the plantation talk of speaking a way in which it can be interpreted, like the old 100s in the gospel. You don't want mass to know exactly what you mean, but we speaking in code. We stopped speaking in code. And that was radically new to them. They was just like, wait a minute, y'all moving too fast. You're doing too much. No, we're making progress. So when we come along, things change. We wasn't speaking in code. We weren't watering it down. And they were against that. They told us too much. Okay, fast forward 20 damn years to show you they didn't change. When we took to the streets after they murdered Mike Brown, after they murdered Eric Garner, after they murdered Trayvon Martin, after they murdered Jordan Russell Davis, it was the old heads telling us we making too much noise. Y'all shouldn't be out there making a noise. Y'all, what y'all doing that for? They were the ones causing problems, and that's why we got all the old clergy up out the street and out the paint. So this isn't new. They've always been like that. This isn't just one person's an anomaly. No, they've always been this way, which is why I say this fight has been generational. The old generation is okay to suffer in the cesspool, and we said to hell with that. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We have not been comfortable to sit there with the situation messed up. We have not been all right with that. And I'm just giving you all the historical context of it so that you see this isn't something that just happened last week or last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. If you look back, they've always had a problem with us. We're too strident. They always want us to tone it down, turn it down. They always want us to join hands with our enemies. They've always told us that the solution to every damn thing is to hold hands with people who have utter contempt for us. And then the solution is we just need to keep holding hands with them until they finally change. You said it 200 years ago, 150 years ago, 80 years ago, 50 years ago. You're still saying it today. Your solution to everything is join hands with people who despise us. That's your answer to everything. Doesn't matter what they say, doesn't matter what they do. You always got an excuse to rationalize why we need to just sit there and tolerate it. Not why they have to stop brutalizing us and they have to stop abusing us. You don't say that. We need to change. Yeah, we always need to give some more and give some more and give some more. That's the old head solution to everything. Is you need to just give up some more. If you look back at it historically, you'll notice that's what you've been hearing now for decades. Only from them. Yeah, because they got their pension. That's all they wanted. So they can do some globe trotting. Hard for the police to yank you out your car at 30,000 feet in the air on American Airlines. That's a young nigga's problem. Their solution to everything is accept people's abuse. That's what got that interracial access thing going. White women calling you nigger, but if she's willing to sleep with you, oh well, that's the cost of doing business. Yeah, you got some interracial sex, you just gave up your dignity. But I guess you'd have to have some before you can give it up, so might be a mistake on my part. But their solution to everything for us is to hold hands with people who despise us. And that we need to understand that our inability or refusal to accept the abuse, that's the only real problem. Everything else is fine, except you young cats ain't just accepting the abuse. Accept it and things will change. Well, you know, you get disrespected by everybody, yeah, but I don't have to take it from nobody. You get disrespected by these other folk over here, yeah, and I don't tolerate it from them either. Things didn't work out in Queens, okay, I don't have to sit up here and say, oh well. Just because somebody else is not treating you right doesn't mean you got to accept it from everybody. And it doesn't mean you have to accept it from anyone. But this game plan that the only thing wrong with you is you're not good enough at accepting the abuse and, you know, you just got to hold hands with them until they change. You know what? Why don't I change? I got a better idea. How about I change? Let him stay exactly the way he is. I'm about to change. Whether he's ready for it or not. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Meadows up here on Zoom for me right quick. Okay, I don't see anybody up here on Zoom. Meadows, I'll give you 5 seconds to go ahead and do that for me here. Okay, Meadows, let me explain this to y'all. If you're on Zoom, make sure you have your camera microphone turned on.
Apologize.
There you go, Meadows. What's on your mind?
B1 to the family. My YouTube lagging a little bit, so I didn't even know I was up.
Speak, sir. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I wanted to just talk about some of the Pan-Africanists, being as though it's part of the topic. I find that a lot of the Pan-African. I'm sorry, brother. I'm gonna get off because I'm a little nervous. I don't want to.
All right. He's nervous. I understand. We won't torment him with that. But, folks, this is brand new to a lot of these folks. This is brand new. They had no idea that we developed our own philosophy, our own ideology, and our own worldview. They had no idea. They didn't know. They thought that we were sitting back waiting for them to come tell us what's going to be and how we're going to get there. They really did think that's what we were going to do. They really did think that's what we were doing. Hey, we need y'all to tell us which way to go. No, we got it worked out. We got that. The other thing is they're not used to demanding respect. They're not used to actually demanding respect from people. This whole stuff right here is brand new to them. Demanding respect is not just a matter of you. In a system of white supremacy, you don't just go after the white supremacists. You have to go after their collaborators. People, you're in a system of white supremacy. But if you're going to fight white supremacy, you don't just fight the white supremacists. You also got to stop their collaborators. Yes, you identify the puppet masters behind the scenes, but that does not mean that you ignore their collaborators. And I will reiterate this again. You are delusional or a liar or just fooling yourself when you sit up here and say that these people don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing with that devious expression on their faces. They know exactly what they're doing. They're just hoping that we'll just sit here, because every time we sit here and ignore people openly, blatantly abusing us, disrespecting us, undermining us, they sit there and say, see, I told you that they were that dumb. It's okay. They're just like the white supremacists. In case you all didn't notice, their pathology runs parallel to the white supremacists. See, it's okay for us to abuse these Akatas and abuse these black Americans. It's okay for us to do that because, see, they're not smart. They're not quick. They're very gullible. You can disrespect them to their faces and they'll still keep talking about Pan-Africanism. You can disrespect them and they're going to say you don't know what you're doing. This is the very definition of mistaking kindness for weakness. And I'm just like, okay, when somebody thinks that your kindness is weakness, it's time to drop the kindness. When someone keeps abusing your kindness as if it's weakness, that means it is time to stop the kindness. That's common sense. You would say that to your 3-year-old. You would not tell your 3-year-old, keep being kind to them. Oh yeah, one more thing. You wouldn't tell your 5-year-old to keep being kind to somebody who keeps abusing them. You wouldn't tell your 5-year-old, well, they don't know what they're doing, so you keep playing with them until they realize that they're abusing you. That's not what you would say. At least I hope that ain't what you would say. This is bad advice. If your advice were working, you wouldn't have to try to badger us and nag us into it. You would just show us it works, and then that would be the end of the discussion. It doesn't work. And there are a bunch of y'all who capitalized off of that because you needed it, but it doesn't work. We're not going to take it. So you're not going to be able to sell us on that, man. You're not going to sell us on that. We've already seen what it is. We already seen what it is. We already seen what it does. We talk to the folk. You trying to sit up here and explain it away for. We talk to them every day, man. We got daily contact with them. So a lot of the old heads, they may be having issues with this. And once again, I started off the program saying this. I've been saying this throughout the program. I'm going to wrap up the program here saying this again. No disrespect. It's not flaming. We're not taking shots at nobody. You know, we're not doing no takedown. We ain't roasting anyone. But we need to clarify exactly what this issue really is. We're not ignorant. We're not dumb. We're not confused, which is why I don't have to drop any of the details. I can talk about the whole thing and I don't have to omit any of the pertinent, crucial details. That's how you know I'm not confused. I don't have to start dropping out details and deleting inconvenient truths. I don't have to do that. That's the primary sign that you're not confused, is when you don't go around editing things to try to put a good positive spin on it. I don't have to put a positive spin on it. I just put a truthful one on it, and the rest takes care of itself. That's the difference. If you can't do that, then that is the sign of an obsolete ideology. And the next generation, as you can see, is not going to just keep walking like a blind dog, following what is obviously a failed, futile, obsolete ideology. If that makes you feel disrespected, then that is unfortunate. If you feel like we owe you something beyond being polite, that's all we really owe you. This idea that you're going to chastise people either publicly or privately. This idea that the elders are going to chastise us either publicly or privately. Just understand, don't be surprised if that's a one-way street. You'd be far better off, if you want to join with somebody, you'd be far better off joining with us. But what you won't be able to do is be power brokers who are going to undermine us. That ship has sailed and sunk. Can I say this, y'all? Can I say it? I mean, I'll say it tonight, and that way I don't have to say it ever again. But let's just keep it a $103. Folks didn't know who y'all were before we came along.
And deal with it.
I ain't bragging. That's math. People did not know who y'all were. So the egoism, park that to the side. We made a lane, which is what you do for the previous generation. When you showed, that's the respect we showed. We showed respect by opening up a lane. We did not ignore you all like your own generations did. Your peers in your generations ignored you. We opened up a lane where you could finally be seen. We opened up a lane. That is respect. We didn't put the spotlight on us. We put the spotlight on you. Unlike your generation and your peers, we put the spotlight on you. That is the proper respect. We didn't go at you publicly when there was an issue. Too bad everybody else can't return the courtesy. But that is the proper respect. So if you were under the illusion that there was something else, no, you are mistaken. That is tremendous respect. Well, Jason, why are you saying this like this? Because power is not given, power is taken. And we didn't get it from the older generation. We didn't get what we got from them. We had to take that. And we are not giving it up now. So, thank you for your contribution. We appreciate that. We'll take it from here. We'll be steering the ship from here. Anybody who wants to indulge in nostalgia, they got the older generation. They're very well versed in it, and they'll help you with nostalgia, looking backwards. Everything looking forward, we'll be taking care of that. We'll be taking care of that part. No disrespect, but that's our job, remember? Ever since we got in charge, that's our job. And we are going to take everyone on to the next step. So if you all want to know my position, I've gone ahead and clarified that for you. You may make of that what you will. Don't expect me to address it any further. I just wanted to go ahead, and I know the folks been talking about it. I heard some things in there in particular, and I just felt like in this instance, before something gets 10 miles down the road, let's just go ahead and address this now. Being polite has its place. Ignoring things has its place. Disregarding things has its place. I just don't think in this circumstance that was the place. And since folks were talking about it, well, now I've weighed in, and you all can make up your minds about where you think that needs to go. That's up to you. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the haven of intelligent Black thought. We do this every weekend, holidays, some days in between. If we've earned your subscription, go ahead and click that subscribe button so you can join us every time that we're here. And if not, come back next week. Give us another chance here. We'll see if we can earn your subscription next week here as well. But I suggest you hit that subscribe button. As you've seen tonight, you do not want to miss the 720 degrees and 10 tons of analysis that you'll receive absolutely nowhere else. Period. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program, live or recorded. Thank you all for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is uncompromised.